Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where, as always, we learn through the misfortunes of others. I am your host, Uncivil Law, a licensed attorney in Texas, Virginia, and before the U.S. Supreme Court, and I hope you're having a great day. For today's coverage, we turn our attention once again to the case of Jennifer Crumbley. Ethan Crumbley committed a school shooting at Oxford High School. He was charged and tried as an adult. He pled guilty and was sentenced to life. He is currently on appeal on the nature of his sentence. He would prefer life with the possibility of parole to life without the possibility of parole very much, and so he is currently on appeal on that issue. James and Jennifer Crumbley are the parents of Ethan Crumbley. They are both charged with involuntary manslaughter related to the crimes of Ethan Crumbley. These parents are being tried separately, and currently we are covering the trial of Jennifer Crumbley. So far, we have heard testimony from the prosecution witnesses about the murder, because of course this is a homicide trial, involuntary manslaughter. So we heard about the murders. We've heard from witnesses who were at the school at the day. We've heard from a teacher who had a child in their arms. We heard from an assistant principal, kind of same story. A teacher who was shot. We heard from the gun dealer. We heard from various police officers who were there. Someone from ATF tracing the gun. Someone who was there to get the video footage from the school. And we also heard from the gun dealer. And last night, we heard from the school counselor who was present at the meeting with Ethan Crumbley the day of the shooting. A notable witness for the defense. I was a little bit surprised they didn't do more with it, to be honest. They were surprisingly efficient about it, particularly in context with other witnesses that we've had in the past. Maybe they thought, based on a commentary, they thought that maybe they had overextended their welcome when it came to prior witnesses and decided to be more concise about it. So I found the defense's cross much easier to contain. The defense lawyer, for her part, has a bit of a cadence problem where her voice becomes a bit sing-songy and after a while becomes difficult to listen to. So fortunately, she was able to stay within my attention span, which was nice. So that was good. And the jury got off early yesterday because there was some issues they wanted to discuss outside the jury's presence. We are back here today. The trial appears to be delayed. It appears maybe the reason is because of one of the jurors. And, that's where we're sitting on that. And I can't hear anything. I assume you guys heard early you guys heard something earlier for rave music. There shouldn't be any rave music. Were you able to hear anything? Hold on, I need to switch feeds just to see if I can hear something. Give me a second. I'm just going to pop up random video to see if I can hear literally anything.
Case or no case?
Yes, I can. Great. So it's just not me. Fantastic. I couldn't hear any music. I couldn't hear anything at all. So, I don't know what that was. I couldn't hear it at all. There was rave music. You got me on that one. I didn't hear it, and okay. And I don't know where it was coming from. I don't think it was coming from my end. Unanticipated rave music. It sounded like gay music? No, it's not that either. I don't think it's on my end. Let's see if it's on my end. Hold on, I gotta go back and watch my own feed. So if I can see this is somehow on my end. Because I don't know what you guys are talking about. Hold on, I gotta watch my own feed. My own feed. It becomes difficult to listen to. So fortunately, she was able to stay within my attention span, which was nice. What the fuck is this? So that was good. And the jury got off early yesterday because for a while becomes much more concise with other witnesses. The defense. And we also heard from the guy who was shot. We heard from manslaughter, so we heard. What the fuck is this? About the murders. They're both. He was charged and tried as a today's coverage. We turn our attention once again to the case of Jennifer Crumbley. Ethan. What the fuck is this? Where's this music coming from? What the fuck is this? Crumbley committed a school license attorney. Hello everyone and welcome to Uncivil. What the fuck? Where's random music coming from? What the fuck? Where's this music coming from? Where's this music coming from? I can't hear it, but you're right. It's on the Realtek output. What the fuck is this? What the hell is going on in my stream? What the fuck? Where's this music coming from? Hello everyone and welcome to Uncivil Law, where as always we learn through the misfortunes of others. I'm your host, Uncivil Law, a licensed attorney in Texas, Virginia, and before the U.S. Supreme Court, and I hope you're having a great day. For today's coverage, we turn our attention once again to the case of Jennifer Crumbley, Ethan Crumbley. What the fuck is this music? Where's it coming from? What is it? Where's it coming from? Yeah, I know it's off now. It's coming through my Realtek digital output USB audio. What the fuck?
All rise for the jury.
Uncivil's confused. Uncivil's incredibly confused. The music seems to be coming from my computer, but I don't know where it's coming from, and this is very confusing to me.
Good morning, you can see it. You guys okay with having all that? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Good. Prosecutor, who's next with this?
Mr. Nicky Jack.
Uncivil is incredibly confused right now.
Nick Ejak.
Hold on, guys. I gotta figure this out. This is driving me crazy.
A school shooting at Oxford High School. He was charged and tried as an adult. He pled guilty and was sentenced to life. He is currently on appeal on the nature of his sentence. He would prefer life with the possibility of parole to life without the possibility of parole very much. And so he is currently on appeal on that issue. James and Jennifer Crumbley are the parents of Ethan Crumbley. They are both charged with involuntary manslaughter related to the crimes of Ethan Crumbley. Not presently into it's sing-songy, and after a while becomes difficult to listen to. So fortunately, she was able to stay within my attention span, which was nice. So that was good. And the jury got off early yesterday because there was some issues they wanted to discuss outside the jury's presence. We are back here today. The trial appears to be delayed. It appears maybe the reason is because of one of the jurors. And, that's where we're sitting on that. I can't hear anything.
Okay. Apparently the music is called Accepted by LMRNCE.
You guys heard something? Earlier for rave music? There shouldn't be no rave music.
Accepted by LMRNCE.
Switch feeds, just see if I can hear something.
I don't know where it's coming from, though. I'm so confused.
See if I can hear.
All right. I give up. I don't know where it's coming from, and I'm very confused.
Class. At the time, we didn't have an attendance policy coming out of COVID, so it's also part of my responsibility was to put together a policy that would work for the school.
Okay, so yesterday we heard from Sean Hopkins, who was a school counselor, and he said that
What
there
the
were
fuck is this?
4 counselors. How many dean of students were there?
1.
Okay, so will the responsibilities of a school counselor differ from the responsibilities of the dean of students?
Yes, that's correct.
How so?
So counseling, they oversee, to my understanding, they oversee college and career planning, class scheduling, mental health of the student body, planning events in relation to like extracurricular activities, the Oakland Schools technical campus. There's a lot of responsibilities that has no relation to the dean of students role.
Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, you would be called in when there was a discipline problem in class.
Correct.
I have no idea where it's coming from.
Okay. And
I have no idea where the music is coming from.
The county health department mandated masks, or is that the state order?
I believe that was Oakland County.
Okay. And so it was your responsibility to also mandate compliance with that?
Correct.
Okay. So November of 2021, all students and staff were wearing a face mask?
Correct, with the exception of anyone that had a medical exemption.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we can go back to the beginning of testimony because I was diagnosing. We can go back in time since we missed who the witnesses. Sorry.
I do.
Please step up and have a seat.
Yeah, volume mixer and see if I can see where it's coming from. Yeah, I guess.
Last name.
Sure. Nicholas Ejak, first name Nichololas, last name Ejak, E-J-A-K.
Got it, prosecutor.
Thank you. Sir, I want to direct your attention to the fall of 2021. Where were you working at that time?
Oxford High School.
Okay. And what were you doing there?
I was the dean of students.
How long have you been employed at that time with the Oxford School District?
That was my first year.
I'm sorry?
That was my first year.
Okay. And you're with a different school district now?
Correct.
Okay. Tell the jury, please, what exactly the Dean of Students at Oxford High School did.
So the dean of students is responsible for all of the student body, behavior discipline, attendance, academic intervention, behavior intervention.
Okay. So walk us through a typical day as the Dean of Students at Oxford High School, at least in the fall of 2021.
Sure. So in the fall, also we were, in 2021, we were dealing through the COVID-19 pandemic. So in addition to those responsibilities, due to the health order, part of my responsibility was ensuring that everybody was masked up. So that was part of the job throughout the day too, was to ensure students had access to masks, but they were also wearing them. Students being referred throughout the day from teachers based on behavior they're seeing in class, students coming down to report stuff going on in the building, conflicts they're having, conflicts they're hearing about, attendance issues where kids aren't coming to school or they're showing up late frequently to class. At the time, we didn't have an attendance policy coming out of COVID, so it's also part of my responsibility was to put together a policy that would work for the school.
Okay. So yesterday we heard from Sean Hopkins, who was a school counselor, and he said that there were 4 counselors. How many dean of students were there?
1.
Okay. So will the responsibilities of a school counselor differ from the responsibilities of the dean of students?
Yes, that's correct.
How so?
So counseling, they oversee, to my understanding, they oversee college and career planning, class scheduling, mental health of the student body, planning events in relation to like extracurricular activities, the Oakland Schools technical campus. There's a lot of responsibilities that has no relation to the dean of students.
Okay. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you would be called in when there was a discipline problem in class.
Correct. That was the main function of my responsibility.
Okay. And as you said at that point, the county health department mandated masks, or is that the state order?
I believe it was Oakland County.
Okay. And so it was your responsibility to also mandate compliance with that?
Correct.
Okay. So November of 2021, all students and staff were wearing a face mask?
Correct, with the exception of anyone that had a medical exemption.
Okay, thank you. Now, how long have you been in that role as of November of 2021?
That would be 4 months.
Okay. So when you started that school year?
Yes.
All right. And where did you work before? What did you do before?
So prior to that, I was a long-term substitute teacher for Lake Orion schools. Once again, coming out of COVID, I had been laid off as the dean of students out on the west side of the state, where I was running an alternative high school program. And so I had returned to this side and was able to obtain employment as a long-term substitute teacher.
Okay.
With the idea that it would be temporary
Sure.
for that school year.
So in November of 21, how long have you been in education?
9 years.
Okay. Now we heard a little bit about Power School yesterday, at least through the Oxford School District. What does that mean?
So Power School is a student information system where essentially a bunch of data on students is stored and accessible for teachers, administrators, students, and parents. Everybody has a different view of that, but it's the same system. So if you're a parent, there's a parent view where you're able to see specific things to your child as a parent. For students, it's the same thing. You can see stuff for your students, which includes your grades, missing assignments, and then like my view as a part of the school staff administration would be able to see all of it.
Okay.
And input information to that as well.
And as an administrator, you're able to input, is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. And that came with every student in the district, would that be right?
Correct.
As soon as we have a break, Uncivil's going to try to figure out what the hell's going on because Uncivil is very confused.
At Oxford High School in the fall of 2021?
Yes.
Okay. Prior to November of 2021, did you have any interaction with him?
I did not know.
I want to direct your attention to November the 29th.
Who's this guy in Peaky
2021.
Blinders? Nice reference.
That's a Monday, the day before the shooting. Did you receive an email regarding Jennifer Crumbley's son?
I did, yes.
I'm going to direct you to the screen that's in front of you. This was admitted yesterday as People's Exhibit 158. This is an email to you and Miss Pam Fine.
Correct, yes.
Okay. It was sent from whom?
From Jacqueline Davina.
And is she a staff member at Oxford High School?
Yes.
Okay. In what capacity does she work?
She is an English teacher.
Okay. And go ahead, and this was already admitted, go ahead and read us the email that you received.
Good morning. I had a student during first hour today, Ethan Crumbley, who was on his phone looking at different bullets at the end of first hour today as I was walking around the room passing out their essays. I didn't get a chance to investigate it a bit further since it was the end of the hour. Now that he's on my radar, I'm also noticing that some of his previous work that he's completed from earlier in the year leans a bit toward the violent side. I could bring down these things later today during my fifth hour prep if you would help them.
And this email was sent at 9:32 a.m. to both you and Ms. Fine. Please give the jury an idea of who Ms. Fine is and what her responsibilities were at that time.
Sure. So Ms. Fine is the restorative practices coordinator and the anti-bullying coordinator for the district. However, her position is housed at Oxford High School, but she does work in all the other buildings throughout the district. And she had previously been, before my employment, the dean of students there. And so due to her role with anti-bullying and restorative practices, her and I would often team up together to handle the behavior and discipline throughout the school.
Okay.
So that's why both of us were sent this email.
So when you received this email, what did you do?
So by the time I had actually...
Well, let me ask you this question.
Sure.
If you recall, when did you actually receive the email? When did you actually read it?
When I received the email, it was probably around 11 a.m.
Okay.
I was aware that there was an email.
And tell us what happened with the situation.
So when I was made aware of the email, it was coming from Ms. Fine, who had overheard me returning to my office from a meeting that I was in when this email was initially sent.
Your office was in the administrative section of the Oxford High School?
Yes.
Okay.
My office was right next to hers.
Next to Miss Fines?
Correct.
Okay.
And so we often would just like kind of yell out if we needed to talk to one another, and then one of us would walk over to the other's office.
Okay.
And so she had heard me returning to my office, and I remember her saying, "Hey, do you remember that email we got today?" And I said, "What email?" And that's when I had walked over to her office and pulled it up on my phone, and she began to explain to me that she had read the email and knew that I was in the meeting, and I believe she in response got it to the teacher.
Okay.
And walked me through the steps she took, which was calling the student down.
And Mr. Hopkins was with Miss Fine in the meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. The meeting had since ended, and so like she was just walking me through what they did.
Okay. So she updated you on what happened in the meeting?
I'm sorry, what?
She gave you an update on what happened in the meeting
Yes,
with
correct.
Jennifer Crumbley's son? Okay. After you received that information, did you determine if you had to take any steps regarding discipline?
It wasn't necessary that I did anything further. She did everything that I would have done.
All right. Did you have any additional interaction with that student at all on Monday the 29th?
No.
Okay. Now, moving towards, did you receive any emails later on in the evening, Monday the 29th, regarding a student? Anything at all with him?
I don't remember if I did or not.
Okay. November the 30th, Tuesday. This has already been admitted on your screen here as People's 160. This is an email from Miss Morgan. And who is she and what does she do?
Miss Morgan is a math teacher at Oxford High School.
Okay. So she sent this email to you as well as Mr. Hopkins Tuesday, November 30th at 9:32 a.m.?
Correct.
Okay. Up until this point in time, did you have any conversations regarding Jennifer Crumbley's son?
Prior to this email?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that, please.
So I was in my office Tuesday morning when Miss Morgan had walked down to the front office just looking to share some information about a student that had drawn inappropriate things on a piece of paper. And I was the only person available to respond to that or to hear her out.
So let me ask you this. This is People 74. It's already been admitted. You said a piece of paper. Is this what you're referring to?
That is correct.
Okay. So prior to the email at 9:32 a.m., Miss Morgan showed you this, which has been admitted as People 74?
She showed me an image of that on her cell phone. Yes.
On her cell phone, okay.
Yes.
Do you recall about what time that happened?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just know that it was during our second period of the day. However, I don't remember what time.
Okay, that's fair. Tell us about that conversation when she came and showed you this picture.
She had said she just needed to share that a student had written some inappropriate things on an assignment. And so I told her, I kind of waved her into my office since everybody else was occupied. And she had turned her phone around and showed it to me. And I had noticed the name on the top that I recognized from the day before when Ms. Fine had shared that information with me. Mm-hmm. And my response to that was, I need to go get his counselor. And her response was, I need to get back to class.
Okay. So that was in the second hour, you think?
Correct.
Okay, so obviously it was before the email sent at 9:30?
Yes.
All right. Now, what was your initial response in seeing this, Exhibit 74?
That I needed to alert his counselor.
And why is that?
Because it seemed like he might need somebody to talk to, or we might need to figure out how we could get him some additional help.
Okay. Now, when you first looked at this drawing, what's the first thing that jumped out at you?
The statements.
Which
the
one in particular?
Blood everywhere is what I noticed first. The world is dead. My life is useless. Those were the things that stood out to me.
Okay. So when you were shown this, were you thinking of a lens through discipline or through his counselor?
Counseling, 100%.
Why do you say 100%?
Because I don't notice anything on there that would rise to the level that there would be any type of student discipline.
Okay. So what happened next, please?
So Miss Morgan left my office, and I left my office. She returned to her classroom, and I walked down to the counseling area to alert Mr. Hopkins.
Okay. And did you show this drawing to Mr. Hopkins?
I did not.
Okay. When you say you alerted him, what do you mean?
So when I arrived to the threshold of the doorway in his office, before I even said a word, he said to me, "Ethan Crumbley," and my response was, "Yeah, how did you know?" And so he had shared that he had received an email that morning from another teacher regarding Ethan Crumbley. And his understanding was that's why I was there. And that's when I had shared with him that I had received a drawing from Miss Morgan with those statements on it.
Okay, this drawing right here, Exhibit 74?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Now tell us what happened next, please.
His response, Mr. Hopkins' response to that was, "I'll go get him from class right now." And he stood up from his chair and walked on to the math class and grabbed Ethan.
Okay, did you go with him or did you stay?
I remained in his office.
Okay. And did Mr. Hopkins bring him back to his own office?
Yes, he did.
Okay, and what did you do?
I sat in there and mostly listened to the conversation.
Okay, let me stop right there.
Sure.
So, just so we're clear in the chronology, Mr. Hopkins retrieved the defendant's son from class, brought him back to his office where you were waiting?
Correct.
Okay. And then was a conversation ensued between Mr. Hopkins and the defendant's son?
Yes.
Okay. Now, he testified yesterday, so without telling us what words were actually said by each other, tell us what you did and why.
I just sat there to listen for one, to be an additional adult for support. I feel it's important in my job to know that there's more than one adult in the building that cares about the students. And so it was important to me that I was there for support, but also there in case there was a reason that there was behavior that rose to the level for discipline.
Okay. And during that initial conversation, did your opinion ever change to look at this as a counseling lens or a discipline lens?
No, it did not change.
Was a decision made to call that student's parents?
Yes.
Okay. And who made the decision?
Sean had made that decision.
Okay. And were you there when he made that phone call?
I was, yes.
All right. And we have evidence to suggest it was at 9:24 and 9:27 a.m. when phone calls were made. Does that sound right to you?
Yes.
Were you in the office when the calls were made?
I was, yes.
Okay. Were you in the office when a portion of the phone call was on speakerphone?
I was, yes.
Tell us what you recall from that conversation.
So I recall Mr. Hopkins putting the phone on speaker so that the conversation could be had collectively. And so Sean Hopkins had introduced myself and said we were there with Ethan. And during that conversation, he had forwarded the email that we got of this assignment to his mother.
Is that the defendant, Jennifer Crumbley?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So that she could see it in real time while we were having the conversation.
Okay. Did the defendant make any statements regarding that?
I believe she said, "What were you thinking? Why did you do this?"
Okay. And that was while on the speakerphone where her son would be able to hear it?
Yes.
Okay. Were you there when, at some point the defendant and her husband arrived at the school?
Correct.
Okay. So in the time period that elapsed from that phone call to the time period when the defendant and her husband arrived at the school, what did you do?
So once the conversation had ended, we had already changed class periods, and it was now our third hour of the day. And so his backpack was still remaining in the math class, and so it's a common protocol that our security or a hall monitor or someone will go retrieve the students' belongings if they're still waiting on a parent meeting or still having a conversation. That way it's not left when other students arrive.
Okay, so what did you do?
So I left Mr. Hopkins' office and walked down to Miss Morgan's classroom to retrieve his backpack.
Okay, and did you give it to him?
Yes, I did.
Okay. At that point in time, with the COVID protocols in place for students using lockers?
Not at all.
Okay, so every student had a backpack with them at all times?
Every student had a backpack.
Okay. Now, what was your expectation of what was to occur at the meeting with James and Jennifer Crumbley at the school?
So my understanding is that we were going to discuss what would be best to move forward next for getting him some additional help, and that would be happening that afternoon.
Okay. As in happening that afternoon, what does that mean?
That he would be leaving from the parent meeting with his parents.
Okay.
Thank you for subscribing on Twitch. We do appreciate all the people watching on Twitch and supporting us over there.
During the meeting with James and Jennifer Crumbley?
For most of it, yes.
Okay. And who led the meeting primarily?
Mr. Hopkins did.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about how that meeting progressed.
So when I arrived, Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley were already in his office, and they had already began talking about the events that led to the parent meeting. And the drawing, the edited drawing.
Yeah, you said, so this is exhibit 123, so is this what you're referring to as the edited drawing?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
That was on the table because Mr. Hopkins had retrieved that from the teacher when he went to get Ethan from class.
Okay.
So that was on the table and for them to view, although, like I mentioned before, Sean had emailed a copy of the original document to Mrs. Crumbley. And so they were kind of discussing what was next, and she had a pamphlet or a packet of resources that the district provides.
So who gave her that?
Sean, Mr. Hopkins would.
Okay. And when we say resources, what do you mean by that?
Different counseling resources available in the area, and it's like a standard packet that the school district would have on hand to provide to anybody that needed it.
Okay. Have you been involved in meetings where that sort of information has been provided to parents in the past?
Yes.
And you said it's a standard list of information? Or
It's just a
resources?
general list, yeah,
Okay.
of stuff in the surrounding local area.
Does that include facilities or organizations that allow same-day counseling appointments?
That I'm not sure of.
Okay. Are you familiar with Common Ground?
I am familiar with Common.
And what is that organization?
So that is, they offer a couple different things. So they offer mental health resources. You can call a hotline to speak to somebody. You can even go there for like day of intake screening assessments. And that is the organization that in previous districts I worked in that a lot of students that have been seen for mental health had went to
Okay.
day of.
And they're here in Oakland County?
Correct, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Now,
I think you're right,
clearly
Lynn.
your
Crisis team is
expectation
only a
was to
term.
have a
It's
meeting
police
with
that almost always show up. You're right.
About that, please.
In the overwhelming vast majority of situations, the
So-
crisis team just winds up being the police.
Throughout the conversation,
Lord Common Ground. Yeah, it does sound like a bullshit thing, doesn't it?
Parents confirmed
The very name of Common Ground sounds like some bullshit.
Office that were kind of explaining the drawings and the words that he had written that supported him feeling sad. And so he had shared that a dog had passed away recently, a grandmother had passed away, and then one of his close friends had moved within the last month or so. And then that he was very interested in designing video games, and that had led to a argument the night before that he should be more focused on his academics rather than the video games.
Did she provide any details about that argument?
No.
Okay. Did she provide any details about how the circumstance in which when his friend moved away?
No.
I'm sorry, please continue.
And that he really struggled through the pandemic with the virtual learning, as many students did.
I like his style of dress.
that They felt like
I like his style of dress.
put more focus on
I have no
his
problem with it.
academics and spending time working through the
Not 100% sure about the
At
coat,
any
but
point, did you
other
see
than
this as,
that-
anything different than your initial perception, which was a mental health issue?
no.
Okay. You said you had the backpack with you and you provided it to the student. Okay. At any point, did anybody request to search the backpack?
They did not.
And did you search the backpack yourself?
I did not.
988. I'm not sure 988 existed at the time of the incident,
Didn't have any reasonable suspicion.
and I don't trust them either.
Explain what that means, please.
Sure. So reasonable suspicion.
I don't trust them either.
needs to- By law says you have.
Yeah,
to
it does involve law enforcement unless necessary, yeah, as determined by them.
Suspicious activity that would lead to searching student belongings, and so typically that's like.
I'll tell you, one time I had a counselor threaten to call like law enforcement on me because I wouldn't answer one of their questions. And that kind of put me off talking to counselors for a while. You know, so it's like, yeah. It's like, yeah. I'll tell you this story because I used to do this all the time. When I went to counselors, like I won't, because I'm a lawyer, right? I'm a lawyer. So I'll tell you the story, right? So I used to tell counselors, like, I won't answer any question that could potentially put me in legal jeopardy. Because I know the law just as well as they do, right? I know the answer. I know what will and will not put me in legal jeopardy, not for the least of reasons that they tell you, because it's in their privacy policies when you sign in. So even if you don't know, they will give you their office's privacy policies and it will tell you in writing, right? We may break your. It'll basically say paraphrasing, right? It'll say paraphrasing. We may inform law enforcement if, among other things, you are a danger to a child or have harmed a child or are a danger to yourself or others or imminent threat and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I know all that because I read Tarasoff. I read Tarasoff versus Regents. I know the case. So I know all this. So I used to tell therapists straight up when I would meet with them for the first time. It's like, I would tell them straight up, like the first thing I would tell them is like, I just want you to know in advance, I won't answer any questions that could potentially put me in legal jeopardy or that would break privilege. And sometimes they'd ask me about what that meant, and then I'd have to inform them about the law that they should know, but that's okay. So anyways, one of these occasions when I went to mental health counseling, you know, or I actually called mental health counseling this occasion. I don't remember if it was 988. It might have been. I think it was actually. It was a predecessor to 988 because 988 didn't exist at the time, but it was the 1-800 number. So I called the 1-800 number or 188 number or whatever it was at the time, whatever, for the national thing. Like, you know, National Health Crisis Center. I'm like, okay, yeah. So I'm calling because I'm feeling depressed because I, you know, feel depressed sometimes. And so they asked me, are you having any thoughts of self-harm or suicide? I'm like, I can't answer that question. And they're like, why not? I'm like, well, because it might break my privilege. The answer to the question could hypothetically break my privilege. And they're like, oh, so they're going to explain the law back to me, which is great, right? We would only call law enforcement if we deemed it to be a imminent threat to yourself. I'm like, yes, I know that, but the problem is it's you who gets to make that determination, not me. And I don't know in advance what you would determine to be a threat, because how could I possibly know what you would think? Well, we don't call law enforcement except in the most rare of situations. I was like, yes, I know that, but I don't know whether or not you will determine this to be the most rare of situations. How could I possibly know that? So me being the most conservative person I am, it's like, I'm just not going to answer the question. Now, I don't think, incidentally, by the way, at the time I'm having this conversation, I don't think that my answers would in fact prompt this. So I don't think, like, I'm not actually having feelings of self-harm or suicide. I'm not having any of these feelings. But I don't know what they would think. See, so I just won't answer the question because it's the most conservative legal thing to do, right? If I don't answer the question, then they can't form the conclusion. So we debate this for a while, and then she says, well, if you don't answer the question, then I will call law enforcement. And I'm like, well, I don't know where we go from here. So, you know, and then, you know, that somewhat puts you off talking to mental health for a while now, doesn't it? You know? Yeah. So now my non-answer can be used to take away my rights. That's just outstanding. Pressing on.
A report that someone has a vape pen or a weapon, or that they're securing something they're not supposed to have at school, or nervous behavior when you have their belongings, which is very typical of students. That
think how a pilot feels. Exactly. It's like I can't. Yeah, other people have this. Other people have this issue too, right? So yeah, this is great. You know, this is great because it's mandatory reporter duty. So anyone who's paying attention in any sort of context would know this. So military people have this same problem. People who have classified security clearance have the same problem. They're basically actively disincentivized, or pilots have the same problem. It's not just a me problem. A lot of people have this problem, right? People who have security clearance, people who are pilots, people who are in the military, a lot of those people won't go to seek treatment. Why? Because they know that their treatment notes may come to the attention of the relevant authorities, right? Because if I go to that treatment, perhaps my military commander will learn of this. Perhaps my people who give me my security clearance will learn of this. Perhaps my pilot's employer will learn of this. Somehow they'll learn about it some way. So what's the most conservative thing I can do? Just not get help. Because if I don't get help, then they can't learn the things and they can't make the report. Now, can they? So the really smart people who are actively paying attention specifically won't get help because they know their answers can be used against them. So you've disincentivized them getting help. Fantastic.
Their behavior will change when you're in possession of their stuff, and none of that was present at that moment.
and again, it's a lot of details. Well, have you ever met the defendant before, Jennifer Crumbley?
I have not known.
You ever met her husband before?
I have not known.
Prior to this day, you ever met her son before?
I did not know.
Okay. Was he wearing a face mask the entire time?
He was wearing a COVID mask.
Now, was there a desire for him not to be left alone at this point?
That's what Sean had stated during the meeting when.
It's also the results of lawsuits. I know it's TerraSoft. It's all TerraSoft. It all goes back to this TerraSoft case versus Regents. That's where it started. TerraSoft versus Regents of California. I know the case well. Yeah. TerraSoft was a person who was injured by a person who went to the university for help to their psychiatrist. The psychiatrist did not report them. TerraSoft was injured. Then they're like, yeah, yes, this would break privilege because they're an active threat. It breaks privilege. But no one thinks about the consequences of that decision, right? The consequence of that decision, right, is anyone who knows that is like, well, I just won't go to mental health at all because they can't report what they don't know. So the really smart people are disincentivized from getting help. Lawyers know that. Lawyers know that too. We don't want it reported to the bar. We don't want a record that might be reported to the bar of, our drug use or our alcohol use, because we know, for instance, that we have to waive all those privileges when we sign up for the bar. We do. We have to waive all those privileges. We have to waive medical privilege as part of getting into the bar, so they can ask our doctors all these exciting questions, because we've waived privilege because we have to. And we know that. So the really smart people don't do it, so there's nothing to waive. And they never get help. So they wind up in a spiral because they can't get help. Because they know their answers can be held against them. And around we go. And around we go. So it's lawyers, it's doctors, it's people with security clearance, it's people in the military, it's pilots. A lot of them are well aware. A lot of them are well aware of situations in which someone did go to a psychiatrist and someone did lose their security clearance as a result. So what do you think is the lesson to the really smart person? When you punish someone for doing the right thing, they're not going to do it anymore. Yeah. So I know, because I'm a really smart person, I know I can't be as open with a psychiatrist as I might want to be, because I know my answers might be used against me. So I'm not going to give the answers in the first place. So I can't get help. This is what makes treating my depression so particularly hard. I know I can't get counseling because I know where it can lead. I've tried to anyway, and I've tried to protect my rights, and then people threaten me anyway. Family court, first responders, law enforcement, people with permits. The list goes on and on and on. Yep. So so TerraSoft had all these negative consequences, and no one ever seems to talk about it. It's like, yes, okay, the psychiatrist knows because the person told them, I'm planning on killing somebody. Hey, you really should tell someone if they're planning on killing someone. That's a threat to that person. Well, what's the consequence of that? Yeah. Welcome to the intelligent people.
To do moving forward, and so his recommendation was that
I hate TerraSoft.
he receive Ethan.
I think it was bad
counseling
for all the reasons I just said.
Today, if possible, meaning the 30th. And the response to that was, we can't take him anywhere today.
It was Maya. In the Taking Care of Maya trial, Maya didn't go to see therapy during the course of the trial. Why didn't she go to see therapy? Because Maya's smart. And if she's not smart, her lawyers are smart. So either way, right? Maya didn't go to therapy. Why didn't she go to therapy? Because she knew her mental state was an issue. And she knew that she'd have to waive privilege because her mental state is an issue, right? She's talking about the mental impact on her. Right? So if she goes to therapy, all of her therapy notes become open. She has to waive privilege. Maya knows that, and if she doesn't, her lawyers told her, because her lawyers are correct. So she doesn't get therapy. She doesn't get therapy for the horror that Johns Hopkins does, because she knows, or at least her lawyers know, that if she does, all those notes are exposed and can be used against her. So she doesn't get therapy. Yeah. Right.
We have to go back to work.
Pisses me off.
Mrs. Crumbley said that.
The defendant did?
Yes.
Okay. What was your reaction to that?
It seemed a little odd based on my experiences in previous similar parent meetings when students are being seen for mental health.
Tell us about that.
Could you rephrase that? Tell us about
So
it.
why?
And no one who
Because
legislates
typically,
this ever seems to put two and two together.
As to relevance.
No one who legislates this ever seems to put two and two together.
Just similar to
No.
Mr. Hopkins' testimony yesterday.
So we just
They've been
suffer.
in meetings before.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, sir, you've had the opportunity to be in these type of parent meetings before with mental health issues?
Yes.
Okay. And could you put a number for the jury and how many you've been a part of?
Between 5 and 10 of them.
Okay.
Across the time of my education.
Okay. So
Any
calling
solution?
a parent for
Well, the only solution is to provide an absolute privilege, because there's no answers, only trade-offs. There's no answers, only trade-offs, and that's true in law a lot. Like if there was an answer, we would have came up with an answer. There is no answers. There's only trade-offs. So the only answer is the exact opposite. Okay, we'll keep the absolute privilege. We'll make it absolute, and then the person can tell their psychiatrist all the things that they want. And the psychiatrist doesn't report. So we make the psychiatrist not a mandatory reporter. In fact, we prohibit them from reporting. The lawyer has privilege. The lawyer has absolute privilege. If you go to a lawyer and tell them about these things, they have absolute privilege. For pretty much, or a priest, they have absolute privilege. So even a priest is better, because even lawyers don't have absolute privilege. I guess the only absolute privilege you have is with your priest. So, because priests can't report. They're not, even lawyers are mandatory reporters in some situations. So I guess the only thing you can do is go to a priest. Because so the only thing you can do is make the privilege absolute. And then if someone goes to their psychiatrist and be like, yes, I'm harming my child. Yes, I'm planning on killing my wife. Yes, I'm planning on shooting up the school. They can't report. But at least maybe they get help. And maybe they stop. So what do you want? Which do you want? Which of these scenarios do you like better? Yeah, there's no trade-offs, there's no answers, only trade-offs. Yeah.
For an immediate meeting, that's not a regular thing that occurs, correct?
It is not.
Okay. So that's something that something has to cause the school administration to do that.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Now, you testified earlier that it was your expectation that the defendant or her husband would take the defendant's son home, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And this did not meet your expectation, but you found it to be odd. So, comparing what happened November the 30th with everything in your prior experience, tell us why you felt that to be odd.
Typically, when it's recommended that parents take their children.
Daniel says Dick Harpootlian did not sell phone. Ooh, exciting.
They follow the direction of the mental health professional, and that's been my experience every time.
In this case, that would have been Sean Hopkins.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Now, what was your impression of how that meeting?
Yeah, no, I disagree on this one. I think Dick screwed it up.
Sort of seemed like it ended abruptly. It was a very short meeting.
Thank you, Daniel, for your email, but I'm going to disagree with you on that one.
Minutes long.
Okay.
And once it was determined that they were not going to take him home.
Yeah, there was music. I know. We're working on the problem.
Walk home if he was going home, and then be home by himself.
We have mysterious music.
Ethan had said that.
Okay. In front of his parents?
Yes.
Did either Jennifer or James dispute that?
No, they didn't.
Okay. Please continue.
And that's when Sean had responded that he really didn't want Ethan to be home by himself alone, and that he thought it was best that if he wasn't going to leave that morning with his parents, that he remain in school so that he could be surrounded by other people, and that he would monitor his attendance and check in with him.
Okay. I have nothing further.
Ross?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. In terms of your experience, I understand prior to becoming the assistant.
I don't think I have an open tab playing music. I have no idea where it's coming from. We're going to figure it out during the break, hopefully.
That is correct, yes.
And you have a degree in what?
I have a master's degree in education and human development. and a bachelor's degree in sociology.
And did you ever have any training specific to disciplining students or discipline issues?
Yes, on-the-job training.
When you say you had on-the-job training, where was that?
So my job previous to being a long-term substitute teacher, I was the dean of students for an alternative program in charge.
Lawyer, you know, seems to think there's a miscommunication.
And I spent 3 years for Brandon.
No, I don't think that's the problem. I think Dick is an idiot.
And so I specifically dealt with student behavior.
In the training,
I don't know whether or not she ultimately is correct on the ultimate standard of law. I haven't done enough deep dive research to answer that question.
Would have discipline issues.
Yes, I was.
I believe you mentioned that one of those signs that you would know to look for in terms of thinking about what, if you need to search their backpack, would be whether they seem nervous when you're holding their materials, correct?
Yes.
Now, in this case, there was a time where you walked down to the classroom and retrieved Mrs. Crumbley's son's backpack.
Yes.
And you carried that backpack to the office where you were meeting with Mr. Hopkins and Mr. Crumbley's son, Mrs. Crumbley's son.
Yes.
When you carried that backpack back to Mrs. Crumbley's son, he did not appear to be nervous at all that you were holding his backpack.
He didn't appear to even care that I was holding his backpack.
And so based on him not caring or showing signs of nervousness, you had no concern there was anything in that bag.
I had no reasonable suspicion to search his belongings, no.
You didn't
need
make
it,
the
incidentally.
observation that that bag felt unusually heavy.
That is not correct.
Did you ever make the observation about how heavy the bag seemed?
I made a joke to Miss Morgan at how easily she picked it up and then handed it to me and my arm dropped. And so it was more of a joke of how strong she was compared to handing it off to me.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
So you had training through your employment with the Brandon School District. Is that
Correct, yes.
You had training when you were working on your undergraduate degree.
Correct, yes.
You obviously have your advanced master's degree.
That is correct.
You have the experience from working in the school across state.
That is correct.
And you probably have attended other seminars and things to keep up to date on any recent developments in this area.
Yes.
How many additional hours would you say you've spent in those additional trainings?
I'm not sure.
Are you required to do a certain number per year?
No, I'm not.
But you do those trainings?
Yes.
Have you done more than one training?
Yes.
More than 5?
No.
Yeah, backpacks are heavy, no
Your
doubt.
main job or responsibility at Oxford High School was to be in charge of discipline issues with the students.
That was one of them, yes.
And when you were looking at any situation involving Mrs. Crumbley's son, there was nothing that you determined required a disciplinary action.
There was nothing that had required discipline in that situation, no.
So we talked yesterday about how Mrs. Crumbley's son was caught looking up bullets during class time.
Yes.
There was no discipline needed after he's looking up bullets in a classroom?
That doesn't reach to the level where there would be a consequence.
And with respect to that issue, there was a phone call and a voicemail left for Mrs. Crumbley.
That is correct.
You were present when Ms. Fine left the message?
I was not present when she left the message.
Mr. Hopkins was present when the message was left.
I can't speak to that.
Thank you. As far as you knew, Mrs. Crumbley was not asked to come to the school regarding the bullets,
As far as I know, she wasn't, no.
and Mrs. Crumbley was not asked to call back to the school, as far as you know,
She was asked to return the phone call if she had any questions about what had occurred.
but not asked to return the phone call no matter what.
No, we often just give parents phone calls when we meet with students regardless of the issue, just to keep them informed on what we talked about, without not a request to return phone call.
Now, when you were speaking with the prosecutor, you were shown exhibit number 158. I'm going to pull that up on the screen. Okay, so I've got 158 up there. And this is an email chain. that
Teachers and
went
professors are at
between
risk if they seek help. Yeah, a lot of people have this
Ms.
problem.
Kubina
A lot of people have this
and
problem. Anyone with a
yourself.
license,
Is that correct?
teachers have licenses, professors have licenses. Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Anyone with a
I'll back up.
license, doctors,
I can
lawyers.
see that this went between
pilots.
Ms. Kubina and
Yeah.
Sean Hopkins. Were you made
Yep.
aware
Welcome to reality.
of the contents within this email that's in Exhibit 158?
Yes.
And in Exhibit 158, Ms. Kubina wrote, not only was he looking up the bullets, but that when she reviewed his previous work that he's completed, it leans towards the violent side, correct?
That's what it says, correct.
Did you go and ask Ms. Kubina to provide you some of the work he completed that appeared violent?
I did not do that as it wasn't necessary.
So it was not necessary for you to specifically speak with Ms. Crumbley in any way about the bullets, drawing, or research,
It was not necessary.
and it was not necessary for you to look at what were described as violent side indications in his prior work.
It was not necessary because another staff member had already taken care of this issue, so I didn't need to get involved any further.
And you did not mention to Mrs. Crumbley at any point in time that a teacher had described prior work of her son to be on the violent side.
Can you rephrase the question?
Sure. Did you ever talk to Mrs. Crumbley that there was an indication from a teacher that her son had prior work that leaned on the violent side?
During the meeting that we had on the 30th.
You're saying you discussed,
We discussed that during the meeting we had on the 30th.
but at that time you didn't even have the violent leaning materials, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
And you didn't show her any of the examples that you would say would be violent leaning materials.
I didn't have those to show her, no.
And as far as you were aware, well, I'll ask if you were you aware if anyone ever discussed violent leaning drawings or violent leaning work in the past with Mrs. Crumbley? Are you aware?
I'm not aware of that, and nor there was any documentation prior to this that would describe that.
Now, on November 30th, we know that you were told inappropriate things were being drawn on the math paper. Or you testified that inappropriate things were drawn on the math paper, correct?
That is correct.
And when you're talking about the math paper, you're speaking about what we see in Exhibit 74 that has drawings and writings by Mrs. Crumbley's son on the paper.
That is correct.
You're aware that Mrs. Crumbley's son was drawing these things and writing these words during class time when he was supposed to be working on this review, correct?
Yep.
And that did not create a discipline issue
Well,
to you?
when he's seen for mental health, that supersedes any type of minor violation that this would potentially rise to, but this doesn't violate any of the code of our conduct. So there wouldn't be discipline, and as I mentioned, because of the fact that he was being seen by his counselor for mental health, that's what takes precedence in this situation.
That was explained to Mrs. Crumbley. This is not a discipline issue. your son is not in trouble for this drawing, correct?
Yes.
And you explained to Mrs. Crumbley, we're concerned about mental health, not disciplining him for this drawing.
Yes.
And during that meeting, it was a conclusion by you that this was not, you and Mr. Hopkins together, that this was not a discipline issue, but a mental health issue.
So I was there for discipline and behavior, so that question was posed to me to make that call as part of my job.
And what was the call you made?
The call that I made was that there's no discipline warranted, that I'm more concerned that he gets the help that he needs.
During that meeting, were you aware that another teacher had reported Mrs. Crumbley's son was looking at a violent video in class?
Yes, that is why Sean thought that I had come to his office that morning. So he had shared that he had gotten that email from the other teacher.
Did you ask to see the violent video that Mrs. Crumbley's son had been watching while he was in class?
I did not ask to see that, as it wasn't necessary.
You found it to not be necessary to take a look at the video that he had been watching?
No.
You didn't even ask Mrs. Crumbley's son, hey, can I see it? Take a look at that video.
Well, since it was described as not like a live event, and due to the fact that most teenagers are watching violent movies, video games, pre-recorded on YouTube, it doesn't rise to the occasion where you would be concerned.
And it also didn't rise to the occasion that you felt he should be disciplined for watching a video during class time.
That also wouldn't rise to the occasion of a violation of our code of conduct. That would be more of a teacher-managed behavior. You would never be suspended for that, or it wouldn't rise to that occasion.
Okay. I went to school in a different day and age where you had to do school during school. So it sounds to me like during school, Oxford High School allows more freedom than what I experienced. So it was okay that he was looking at the bullets. That's not a discipline issue.
It's not that it was okay, it just doesn't rise to the occasion that you receive a suspension as a consequence. We have to rely on restorative practices instead of going right to suspension, as you mentioned that you might have experienced when you were in school. And we have to consider how the student's behavior interferes with the day and discuss that with them and talk about how we can move forward. And that has to be considered for all minor violations before you would ever consider a suspension. And that's something that we have to do by law.
So, when you're considering all of these things, you're ultimately concluding these are minor violations, if they're violations at all, correct?
That is correct.
The looking at bullets in the classroom,
Yes.
the looking at a violent video on his phone,
Yes.
the drawings on this math paper,
Yes.
the drawings on the amended math paper where Mrs. Crumbley's son made other marks on the page.
So the drawings at the moment were not as important as a standout as the statements were. So when you have the explanation of the desire to design video games, and that's how he was practicing the drawing, and you have the parents confirm that information, it lowers the level of concern immensely.
So you took into account the context of what you were understanding, and that was part of what helped you conclude this was not a disciplinary issue.
That is correct.
Now, in terms of any disciplinary issues with Mrs. Crumbley's son prior, would those show up on Power Schools?
They would, yes.
It's fair to say that when you look at Power Schools, you don't see any history of disciplinary action against Mrs. Crumbley's son.
There was no history of discipline for Mrs. Crumbley's son.
All of his grades are available to be seen. Mrs. Crumbley's son, while he may not have had the best grades, had overall passing grades. Is that fair to say?
Pretty average for a student at the time, yes.
And when you're on Power Schools, you can also see attendance records and be able to tell if the student was in school often or missed school often, correct?
Yes.
And it appears from Power Schools that Mrs. Crumbley's son had very regular, very good attendance.
He did have regular attendance, yes.
So when you are looking at Mrs. Crumbley's son, it's fair to say he comes to you with no history that would cause you to be on higher alert.
That is correct.
And when I asked about prior incidents of discipline or things along those lines, you did not see anything from the 2020 to 2021 school year documented regarding discipline.
No, we would be able to see anything that would be in the history of attending Oxford schools, and there wasn't anything.
When you heard the phone call to Mrs. Crumbley where she was asked, or it was suggested that a parent come to the school, her immediate reaction, you wanted to see her immediate reaction to seeing the paper from math class, correct?
Can you rephrase that question, please?
Sure, and I apologize. You testified that you wanted her immediate reaction when she saw the math paper you were dealing with, correct?
I wasn't looking for her immediate reaction. It was more, we're going to send you this that he just drew so you have it in front of you.
But you did end up getting her immediate reaction because
Yes.
she was on the phone at the time?
Yes.
On speakerphone.
Yes.
And you testified that her first reaction was to ask her son, what were you thinking? Why did you do this?
Yes.
When you
Yeah, why
call
not check the
parents
backpack
and
is a
say,
great question.
I need a parent to come up here for a meeting, oftentimes one parent or the other comes to the school.
That's not necessarily true.
Well, there are times where both parents come to the school together.
Yes.
There are also times where one parent or the other parent come to the school.
Yeah, fair statement.
And when you're asking for a parent to come to the school, you are not specifically saying it has to be mom or it has to be dad or it has to be both, correct?
It just has to be whoever's legally allowed to, yes.
And in this case, legally allowed to would be both mom and dad, Mr. Crumbley and Mrs. Crumbley.
Yes.
So according to your request for a parent to come to the school, it's perfectly okay if it would be Mrs. Crumbley who comes, Mr. Crumbley who comes, or both parents.
Yes.
In this circumstance, both parents came to the school.
Correct.
And they had both attended the meeting that lasted approximately 10 minutes, as you said.
Correct.
Now,
The school also doesn't need any, he talked about reasonable suspicion. The school doesn't need reasonable suspicion.
Parents come to the school.
It's an administrative search. They can just do it for the hell of
regarding
it.
their son, correct?
That I was involved
I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
And that you're aware of.
Yes.
You would have seen on Power
Maybe they need
Schools
reasonable
that
suspicion, but they
Mrs.
probably had
Crumbley
that
had been
too.
up at the
I'd have
school
double checked my case
many
law.
times the year before.
They definitely
the
don't need
year
probable
before
cause.
that, or the year before that, correct?
It depending on the type of meeting, potentially. If they're meeting with a teacher, it probably wouldn't be listed in Power School.
So discipline meetings would have been on there, and you didn't see
Correct.
any history of Mrs.
The kids can
Crumbley
refuse?
coming to
No,
the
not
school.
really.
That's correct.
No,
So she was a person
I don't think
that
so.
when she arrived, you did not know from prior occasions with, you had not had many communications or any communications with Mrs. Crumbley where you would know who she is or how she is.
That's correct.
During the meeting, Mr. Hopkins, supplied Mr. Crumbley and Mrs. Crumbley with the sheet of resources, including many therapists listed.
Mine did until I got to school
And on that
because they
sheet,
wanted to
there was
search her phone.
also Common
Oh,
Ground
the
was
phone might be
listed as
different.
Other mental health
Yeah, the phone might be
facilities.
different. I was talking about like a backpack or a locker, not a phone.
During that meeting,
Fair.
You indicated to Mr.
I don't know
and Mrs.
the law when it
that
comes to searching
you
a
wanted
phone
them to get
at school. I was speaking specifically
counseling
like a
for their
backpack or
son.
locker.
I did not indicate that, no.
Mr. Hopkins did.
Yes,
But you agreed with that.
I do.
And when that happened, there was not any specific direction, you need to go to common ground.
No, the direction was as soon as possible, that day if possible.
As soon as possible, that day is possible, if possible, but it's okay if it
The
was
backpack
going
is in
to
school
end up
property.
being
It's
on a
it's
different
considered an
day.
administrative search by the relevant case law.
Speak to that. I
It's
can
like
speak
similar
to
to going through an airport
statement
or something like that. It's not considered
Hopkins would be followed
it's considered an administrative search. The TSA doesn't need any reason to search your bag.
which means
The police don't need any reason to search your bag.
secure
So,
type of counseling.
school doesn't need any
And
reason.
by
It's considered an administrative
secure
search.
counseling, you mean scheduling an appointment,
Yeah.
making steps to get mental health counseling, correct?
Correct, after they said they were not going to be taking their son out that day.
Now, during the meeting, well, as the dean of students,
There might be a different
you're
role
aware that there are
on phones. That's
some
quite possible.
circumstances where children or students at Oxford High are not permitted to stay at school, correct?
There are situations where students wouldn't be permitted to stay at school.
Yeah, under the relevant
If a student
case law, I'm not
comes
sure
to
you're right,
school
Mel.
and
I don't think they need a
tests
reason to search the
positive for COVID,
backpacks.
You would not
I'm
allow
pretty
a
sure the
student to
operative
stay
case
there.
law treats backpacks the same as lockers. It's considered an
If a
administrative
student
search.
has a temperature and is
I mean, we
sick,
could look it up during the
you
break,
would
and I'm
not
pretty
allow
sure.
the student to stay there.
We would request that they were picked up.
And if the parent said, no, I'm not going to get them, they're fine, the school would still say, no, you have to take them home, correct?
We've said that.
I mean, you could also look it up yourself. Just type administrative search,
It hasn't
schools,
happened where a
backpack.
parent hasn't taken
Let me know what you
them.
find in Google.
Is that what you're
Do
saying?
some homework yourself. Prove me wrong. Administrative search, schools, backpack. Let me know what shows up.
Refuse to come pick them up, they remain at school. I've been in those situations before where parents were refusing to come pick them up.
So you end up letting parents, so there are times then where you want the child picked up, but they don't get picked up, and the school doesn't do anything about it to force the parents to come.
There's nothing that we have the power to do to force parents to do anything.
If you said, if there was a discipline issue, if you had looked at this as a discipline issue and told a parent, your child cannot stay here because of this discipline
Yeah, football
issue,
games and concerts.
you do have
Although
the
typically
authority to
those are
say,
private
"You must
events,
take
so
your
that
child home,"
wouldn't involve
correct?
state action typically. So those examples are a little inopposite, although some might be public. So you'd have to wonder who owns the stadium or something to get into the question, but yeah.
Further than recommend that they get up there because the child cannot remain at school. But I can't force them to do anything.
Okay, but in this circumstance, in this particular circumstance,
I think the fact
there
that the
was
backpacks
discussion
contain school
where
property isn't what makes the
ultimately
difference.
it was
First of all, you don't
okay
necessarily know that they
in
do
your
at any
mind
given time.
for
You don't know that
Mrs.
without looking into them in the
Crumbley's
first
son
place. They
to remain
probably
in
do, but you don't know it for sure because it's a
My
backpack.
standpoint, yes.
Yeah.
There wasn't a reason to suspend him. There was no violation of our code of conduct that reaches the level of suspension.
and
Your son's school
if
said they had to get
you
permission.
thought
Well,
Mrs. Crumbly or Mr. Crumbly
check your state or something.
neglecting
Check your school. I mean, I've given you all the
their son.
keywords you need. Administrative search. I'm giving you all the keywords you need. Administrative search, schools, backpacks.
Yep, absolutely.
If you want to throw in your state in there, like Maryland or whatever, throw that in too. Let me know what you come up with. This is an exercise for the chat now. The chat can play along.
Mr. Crumbly and Mrs. Crumbly were meeting a level of being so neglectful that you needed to call to report that, correct?
You can just tell us in chat, Rachel. You don't have to give me a link. What'd you discover?
Additional information that they were withholding.
It's important for you to have all the information you can, correct?
True. But I
You
can't
would-
force people to share information with me.
You would also agree that the school had information they didn't share with Mrs. Crumbly.
The schools may get consent forms to cover their ass, but I'm not sure, strictly speaking, it's legally
You would
required.
agree with me that
for the school.
there
I'm not sure they need the
there has
consent.
been claims of prior disciplinary issues that, from your documentation in Power Schools, is not.
Is a
is
reasonable
not
cause they
even
can search, so they need a
correct.
reasonable cause?
Agree with that, no.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
fair
did
enough.
I misunderstand? Is those prior discipline issues are on there?
There weren't any prior discipline issues.
Right. So there's no prior discipline issues.
They can't do it at random?
listed on there.
Okay.
You testified you never spoke with Mrs. Crumbley about discipline issues.
North Carolina School Board says reasonable suspicion. Okay.
So you don't have any
For a
evidence
backpack?
that
Okay.
Mrs. Crumbley received all the information
I'm willing to be
that
corrected.
the school would have. Or
That's why we
could
all
have
learn
known.
together, right?
Can you
We all learn together. It's like, yeah, this is what I think.
You
Prove me
don't
wrong.
know
Okay.
that
I accept your
Mrs.
teaching.
Crumbley had received information.
Oh yeah, there's been
about
cases on
every
this for sure, no
specific
doubt.
situation
There's been plenty of
with her
cases about
son,
this.
correct?
There's probably a case in every goddamn state about this. And also it's quite possible
Right.
the
So
difference.
on
There's a
that
difference
day,
between states
you were
on this issue, I would imagine.
discussing with her limited information compared to the whole picture.
It was
What does Dora say?
that we had at the time. All the information we had was shared with her.
Are you saying that when they came in, you shared the emails with her too?
So the emails that we received from the teachers, correct?
Oh, okay. Okay.
At no point in time did you believe that Mrs. Crumbley's son posed a threat to the school.
He did not pose a threat to the school. No.
If he posed a threat
School
to the
resource
school,
officers need probable cause
that's something that you have been trained
That might be true.
in to identify, correct?
because they're police.
Correct.
That might be
We had
true.
Previous threats that year.
Yeah, that might be true. The school resource officer might need probable cause, but the admin
They're
doesn't. That
threats.
sounds right.
Correct.
And when something is a threat, how is it that you handle it differently?
That sounds right.
Is the student allowed to stay in school?
No.
So you are the decision maker about whether or not there is a threat overall.
I wouldn't say that I'm the decision maker, but I have the power to heighten it to the level where we
Reasonable
have
grounds?
people involved that can make
Okay.
a more informed decision.
And you're the one that has the training on that topic.
I'm one of them, yes.
And in this case, your conclusion was that the shooter's son was not a threat.
I'd love to find a case. I'd love to find a case where the school claimed reasonable grounds and the court was like, no, even though they discovered something. That would be fun. Yeah, I don't know if there's any case like that. That would be great. So the courts say, yeah, you need reasonable suspicion. But I wonder if there's any case out there where the school was like, yeah, we had reasonable suspicion. And we searched the backpack and we found, a gun, drugs, or whatever. And some court was like, nope. You didn't have enough. You didn't have reasonable suspicion. No, that you can't use that. You can't use that stuff. Is there any suppression issues on this somewhere? That'd be fun. Yeah, where they actually found something and like some court somewhere is like, no, you didn't have reasonable suspicion. That would be hilarious. Yeah. Yeah, they say reasonable suspicion, but unless the courts actually enforce that, it's whatever the schools want to do, right? So is there any case where they said, yeah, we had reasonable suspicion, then they found like gun, knife, drugs, and the court was like, nah, you didn't have it. Does that case exist? That'd be good.
You also took into account that what Mrs. Crumbley's son
Yeah, school
said
resource officers need
made it
probable
sound
cause. That
like
makes
there were
perfect
issues
logical
of
sense because they're
sadness
police and they're police everywhere. That makes
versus
sense.
Anything threatening.
Yeah, I buy that.
correct?
That makes sense.
Correct, which is very typical of most teenagers.
Very typical.
Very typical of most teenagers, especially at that time with COVID, to feel sad. It was not unusual to hear that throughout the day.
Now,
Yeah, it's
some of
not
the
probable
statements on
cause.
that
We're talking about
paper,
reasonable suspicion,
you saw
which is
the
less.
statements that
This is
say
like a
things
Terry stop.
like, I love my
It's like a
life
Terry
so
stop.
much, and OHS, which I think
Which, you know,
stands for Oxford
yeah.
High School, rocks, correct?
Yes.
Those kind of statements also, would you agree those are mixed signal kind of statements?
No, I would say it looks like you have a teenager who is trying to not get in trouble, knowing that the dean of students is involved. Most of the time when I'm involved in student meetings, the kids always think they're in trouble, which is not necessarily always the case. So I looked at that as he was trying to get himself out of being in trouble.
And
Thinking he was going to be in trouble from this meeting we were holding.
And that was something that's not unusual for you to see.
That's not unusual, no.
That doesn't mean there's a threat to you.
That doesn't mean there's a threat, no.
In terms of Oxford and the area community, you're familiar with the fact that students at the school, there are many who are interested in hunting, guns, target practice, that kind of thing, correct?
Yes, during hunting season, it's kind of like a reminder that sort of gets put out for students that go hunting in the mornings before the late start Wednesdays to remember to not come to school in their gear and or have weapons in their vehicles from that morning. And like we've also had students that pose with guns for their homecoming pictures as well. So it's very common in the Oxford community.
Okay, so it's so common that there are students, they pose for homecoming
There have
pictures?
been students that will pose with guns in their homecoming photos.
When you're talking about homecoming photos, you're talking about like the dance.
They're dressed up at home and taking photos, correct?
So they're dressed up in their, little party dresses, and they're holding guns in the photographs before they go to the dance?
Yes.
And you're saying that there are students who go hunting in the mornings before even coming to school?
Yes. So at the time, we had late start Wednesdays, so school didn't start till 10:20ish. So when hunting season would start, they potentially could be out.
Paralegal Liz is in the chat. Good to have you.
So in addition to...
Paralegal Liz might be a contributor to the channel in the ongoing future. We might have her here to have her join us in some commentary in the future. So maybe not today, but we'll see what we see. We'll see how much she wants to participate. It'd be nice having someone else here to be a cohort. So you can recruit Paralegal Liz to be a co-host of the channel during streams, especially relating to trials. Because it'd be nice to have someone else here, especially to, like, no other reason, just to help me when I'm trying to do so much at once. So hopefully we'll have her participate in the future. Could be fun.
You did know in this case, seeing a gun or talks of a gun, that was not something that caused alarm to make you think there was some kind of threat.
No.
Guns-
I look forward to being corrected by Paralegal Liz in the future.
Guns
That'll be fun
at
too.
that school are very common. It sounds like it's a common topic if they're in pictures of homecoming dresses and things like that.
I would say across many schools, it wouldn't be uncommon.
Paralegals are great to keep the lawyer straight. Lawyers make mistakes too.
There are certain books or part of the curriculum, and students that end up drawing guns to represent stuff in the stories.
Now, my understanding is that you guys recommended immediate care. I'm sorry, I'm going to strike that. I was going into a question I've already asked you. You did not think it was strange that the parents were not taking...
I visit my parents in South Carolina. My parents live in the upstate.
Mrs. Crumbley's son.
So next time I'm in the upstate, maybe we could
Did think it was
meet up or something. I'll probably next be in South Carolina probably in
civil cases
April or May, if I had to guess.
regarding what happened at Oxford High School, correct?
I have, yes.
And specifically on September 14th of 2022, you testified in a deposition, correct?
That sounds about right, yes.
And when you testify in a deposition, it's not like a courtroom like this, right?
No, it's not.
But you still have to swear to tell the truth and take an oath before you testify.
Correct.
South Carolina is a great state. I would not mind living there, I'll tell you what. I love South Carolina. It's a beautiful state.
Taking Ethan home that day, you did not.
Upstate is
find
pretty
that
broad.
to be
I know that.
strange and out of the ordinary. Your answer was no.
It's South Carolina. It's
There
not
would
that
have
broad.
been no reason for him to go home.
That was in regards to student discipline. So the context, I believe, is important there.
That's in regard to student discipline.
Correct.
But that was the question you were asked that day and the answer you gave.
In regards to being disciplined or suspended, correct.
And in terms of a mental health consideration, it was not something that arose to the level where, as a mandatory reporter, you would have to report the Crumbleys for being neglectful. We've already established that, correct?
Yes.
In the meeting you had, there was no indication And there's nothing in Mrs. Crumbley's son's record to show there had ever been a previous concern about the need for mental health to Mr. Crumbley.
Judge, I think we've already answered this question.
You didn't, you asked this already?
No, I asked about prior discipline, but I didn't ask about prior notations mental health was necessary.
Okay, I'll allow it. Go ahead.
From a school standpoint, we did not have any record of mental health.
Now, when you testified previously, you testified that Mrs. Crumbley seemed receptive.
Maybe I should just get
and
my South
willing
Carolina
to
law
get
license and
mental
just go inactive,
for her son.
just for the hell of
That
it.
was my understanding at the end of that meeting, yes.
I still have to pay the money every year, though, if I do that.
Day, it was your understanding.
Should I get my
she
South
was
Carolina
on
law
board
license
and was
and go
going to make an
inactive?
appointment or do something within 48 hours.
That was my understanding and hope.
When you were in the meeting and the struggle was discussed, ongoing struggle between the Crumbleys and their son, would you agree with me that the parents...
Why not? You have a paralegal here? Yeah,
about-
exactly.
They were concerned with...
I'm not sure I could
their
afford you,
son's
Liz. We don't bring in enough
schoolwork and
revenue.
grades.
They just confirmed that they had the argument.
Although maybe you could farm me cases,
Store details
so that might be good.
about anything other than what he had shared with us before.
Were you aware there was a specific
You can recruit cases for me, so yeah, we could be a
related to
little dynamo team there.
Mrs. Crumbley's son having missing assignments specifically?
The only information that she provided was that he struggled with virtual learning, which was confirming what he had also shared with us. But there was nothing specific that I remember her sharing.
And you would agree with me that when you meet with parents, parents all
Watch this moment I own this noob lawyer. Yeah, for sure.
child being brought down to the office.
That depends on the situation.
So depending on the situation, parents may have a variety of reactions.
It depends on it depends on what the meeting is, yeah. What the meeting is about, why we're meeting with the parents and the child.
Obviously, when parents come to the school, they're showing you a level of concern to make sure to handle whatever it is going on, correct?
If you're a paralegal and would like to join Uncivil Law on
If you're
stream,
aware that when the parents are
please send an email to
coming
kurt@uncivillawllc.com.
they are
Please
going to
include
get
a brief description of
information
yourself and your experience and a photograph.
from you and from
And we can
other
talk.
professionals at the school.
Liz gets a
As
pass.
well as providing
If you want to be part of the crew, though.
because they're the experts on the child. So part of the meeting is to share what we have, but also to listen to confirmation or additional details about stuff that they might be seeing outside of school, at home. And that information was not provided.
There was no information provided to you that the Crumbleys had concerns over mental health issues. Fair to say?
That's fair to say.
I have nothing further.
You're direct.
Thank you. Mr. Ejak, let's talk about the whole picture.
Okay?
So, you testified that as dean of students, you need
Oh no, I'm
reasonable
eligible to
suspicion
wave into South
students
Carolina because I passed the UBE, and South Carolina is a UBE state, so I can just ask,
November 30th, 2021,
and they'll admit me.
It was your perception that
I'm eligible for licensure in something like 40 states because I passed the
You
UBE.
also had a perception
So I can
information
just
you were given
I can just ask,
on November 30th,
and they'll say yes.
2021, that the defendant's son wasn't a threat to anyone else.
So all I have to do is file the paperwork. It's probably $2,000 to file the paperwork, and then I owe them probably
Confirm some items that her
$150
son
every year or something to keep my license active. So
Yes.
Did she ever tell you that in March of 2021 and April of 2021?
I probably should file for
her son
DC,
was
just because they don't
or at
require
least expressing that he was
continuing legal education.
She did not.
Okay.
But again,
Did she
I have to
tell
pay
you
them
in
like
April of
$2,000, so that's
2021
annoying.
She had told her friend that she thought her son
So
was
I could
the
drop
best.
Virginia, become inactive in Virginia,
Did she
become
ever
active
tell
in
you
DC.
That as early as June of 2021, she had indicated
sleep?
that
A little
he had
bit, yes.
taken a firearm.
No, she did not.
Okay, now one of the reasons you told us about reasonable suspicion, you said if you believe a student has a weapon or access to a weapon. Is that important to you as dean of students?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. If you had information that a student had access to a firearm in conjunction with that photograph that you saw, Exhibit 74, what would that indicate to you?
that would indicate that I need to heighten it to the next level and involve our school resource officer as well as the other administration.
Okay. And did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that she had given her son a 6-hour 9mm handgun just 4 days before this drawing was created?
She did not know.
Would that have been important to you?
Absolutely, yes.
Would that have helped complete the full picture?
It would have, and it would have completely changed the process that we followed.
Now, you talk about decision makers. Between parent and child, who's the decision maker?
The parent.
Okay. And decision makers as to if a student stays in school or not. Who's a decision maker? Parent or administrator?
I would object because in this case there has been discussion and testimony that the student was a part of the decision and so were the parents. And so I would say that the opinion on this question is irrelevant.
Part of the decision?
I take it the objection is on MRE 401 relevance. In response, counsel on her cross-examination specifically asked him about the decision maker, he being the decision maker, and I believe this.
Yeah, I'm going to allow it.
Thank you. Okay, so between you, Mr. Hopkins, Jennifer, and James Crumbley, who were the decision makers?
So I would say the main decision maker would have been the parents.
The parent. And you've never seen the defendant's son.
Your Honor, I would ask that the prosecution stop asking leading questions.
Sustained.
That's fine. Okay. If you were given a full picture, what would have taken for you to heighten that to reasonable suspicion to search the backpack?
Any type of indicator that the student was going to be a threat to anybody, including himself.
Okay.
That would have heightened it to the next level.
And when you have an
indicator that there was access to a firearm, or that he had made comments about wanting to hurt anybody, any statements written on there with names, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to, like, those would have all been things that would have changed the process that we followed.
And when you have a meeting with a parent and a student, do you rely upon the parent to provide information?
Absolutely. As an expert of their child, heavily rely on the parent.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Your Honor, may I ask one question
Sure.
on redirect? You also, so you're from a community where guns are popular, you testified about that. You also didn't ask if the Crumbleys had a gun, correct?
I did not ask that, no.
You're aware many of the families in Oxford have guns, but you did not ask them specifically if they had one, and they didn't tell you.
I didn't ask that question.
Thank you.
Anything?
No, Judge. Thank you.
You can step down in your excuse.
Please give me a break so I can figure out where the mysterious noise is coming from. Are we on a 5-minute break or something?
Wait, sir.
Are we taking 5? I think we're taking 5. I'm going to say we're taking 5. All right, let's see if we can figure out where the mysterious noise is coming from. This is going to be fun. Prepare yourself for music.
Good morning.
Well, we'll just pause for a second because I want to figure out where the mysterious noise is coming from. All right, hold on. Okay. Voice mod is coming from voice mod? Why is it coming from voice mod? I hate voice mod so much some days. Hold on. What? Why is there music coming from voice mod? What the fuck? For some reason, VoiceMod is creating music. Fuck. All right. Well, there you go. I don't know why, but it is. Okay. Moving on.
Good morning.
Morning.
Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, you may be seated. And would you state your name, please, tell your first and last name?
Andrew Smith, Andrew Smith, SMITH.
Go ahead, Prosecutor.
Good morning, Mr. Smith.
Good morning.
Can you tell the jury what your profession is?
I work for a real estate company. I'm the chief operating officer.
But you're also a lawyer.
And also I'm a lawyer, yes.
Okay. All right. So you're not technically practicing law, is that fair to say? Or
Not normally, from time to time I will, but that's not my primary responsibility.
okay, what are your primary responsibilities?
My title, I'm responsible for all the operations of a portfolio of real estate holdings, commercial, multifamily, industrial, throughout the country.
And about how many employees in the company?
Approximately 700.
Okay, so you're the COO of a real estate management company that has 700 employees. Did I get that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know Jennifer Crumbley?
I do.
How do you know her?
She worked for our company. She was the marketing director at my company.
Do you know what the time frame that was?
I believe she had been a marketing director for approximately a year, a little longer. Before that, she was on the marketing team in a different capacity. I'm not really sure when she hired him, but it was approximately 5 years, give or take, I think.
Okay. Do you see her in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you tell the judge something she's wearing?
Tan, brown, sport coat, and glasses.
May the record reflect he's properly identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
So, did you supervise Jennifer Crumbley?
I was her direct supervisor when she was the marketing director, yes.
So how long was that?
I believe that was a year to a year and a half.
Okay. What were her responsibilities as the marketing director?
She was responsible for handling the marketing of our portfolio of properties, dealing with outside vendors, social media, dealing with reviews, online reviews, helping with leasing training.
I think I'm going to uninstall VoiceMod again. It's a pain in the ass. It's a pain in my ass.
Okay, and so does your company have social media accounts?
Yes.
What accounts do they have? In general, you don't have to
In
say
general,
that.
I know they have Facebook accounts for properties, and they have, I believe, Instagram as well.
Okay. Can you tell the jury what Jennifer's work week is? How many hours was she required to work, and what were the times that her beginning and end time?
I can approximate. She was a director, so I know she was responsible to work a 40-hour work week. The start and finish time fluctuated depending on schedules, whether it was 8 to 4, 9 to 5 type scenario.
Did she have a set schedule, or did it change day to day?
It was somewhat set with some flexibility depending on what was needed. I believe she came in a little bit early, left a little bit early, if I recall correctly.
Okay. Was she ever allowed to work from home?
Yes, there was occasions where she would work remote.
And so you're saying she had done that before?
Yes.
Okay. Talk to me about the company's culture in terms of families.
I think we're very family friendly, family first type atmosphere.
Did you have employees that have issues with kids or family or personal things?
Me included, sure, yes.
Okay. And what is the company policy on that?
I think we're very big on family first culture. If you need time away we have a PTO policy, paid time off policy to cover handling of your needs, but we also are very friendly when it comes to needing time for addressing what may be a child issue or child care, whatever it may be. Routinely, people will bring kids into work because of post-COVID needs for daycare and school closings and snow days, things like that.
What happened when the pandemic was in full force? Were employees still coming in every day, or were they working remotely, or both?
There was a little bit of both, depending on the job and the ability to do so.
Okay. Does the company provide health insurance?
We offer health insurance, yes.
And do you know if Jennifer had health insurance?
I do not know.
Okay. do you know whether or not anyone else in her family was insured?
I have no idea. On our company policy,
Yes.
I'd have to look at those records. I don't know.
Okay, so if I handed you the records, would that refresh your recollection?
I'm not in charge of HR, but it would at least, I would assume, indicate whether or not she was on our policy.
Okay, thank you. You're the COO, correct?
Correct.
Who does the human resources person report to?
A few people, to me included.
Okay. And does the company regularly keep benefits documents in the normal course of business for each employee?
Absolutely.
Okay. May I approach your honor?
Sure.
Mr. Smith, I'm handing you a portion of the personnel file for Jennifer Crumbley that the defense has been provided. What is that?
This appears to be a 2021 new hire open enrollment form for what I believe to be healthcare options, medical healthcare options that year.
Okay. And I'm sorry, may I approach? Is this what you're looking at? This is contained in there. I just want to make
Yeah, this is a different document, but it's similar. Okay.
All right. And what is that document? That's also part of her personnel file, but what is that?
Okay, the document you handed me appears to be a Guardian life insurance open enrollment form for 2021 for Jennifer Crumbley.
Okay. And the previous document you just had, what does that indicate? Who was enrolled in the health benefits?
It appears to be for Jennifer Crumbley, and there were multiple options. It appears she checked, or someone checked the box. She did, I believe, for single medical low plan.
And how much was that per month, if you know?
Well, it listed as $102.55 bi-weekly, so I guess it'd be $204 or $5 approximately a month.
And do you know approximately what the cost would have been to add somebody in her family?
So on this plan, if I file it from single to employee plus one, it would have been $404. Family, $533.81.
Is that once a month or bi-weekly?
These are all bi-weekly.
Okay. All right. May I approach that to you?
You're not marking that.
No.
Random songs being played by my random app randomly. I hate life.
November 30th, 2021. Do you remember that day?
I do.
Okay. As a matter of your daily routine, what were your hours?
It depends on my day, where I'm going, what's going on that day, but it's typical standard 40-hour work week. Some days can be longer, some days can be shorter.
You're also a parent, so did you come in early or did you come in late? What were you?
I remember that day specifically. I forget I was coming.
Why is it like every day
I was driving when
on my stream I have some weird audio issue? How hard is this?
An exhibit that's, I think it's been previously marked, that is from Jennifer's phone. How did you communicate with Jennifer?
in person.
Text message or Facebook Messenger? I'm sorry.
Oh, use text message would be primarily, yeah, text message.
Okay. This has been marked 152. I don't know if the jurors' eyes are. Oh, thank you so much. This monitor is not on.
Your Honor, I believe it's not only been marked, but it's admitted. I
It's
just want
admitted.
to just check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's noticing that the TV isn't on. So I don't know how to turn that on. Magic. It's on.
Okay, thank you. Could the jury let me know if they can't see? I have a little trouble with seeing that. But can you see on the monitor?
Yes.
These are communications that begin that morning or that day, just from Jennifer Crumbley's phone. Looking through this exhibit, is that representative of your text messages that day?
I recognize.
I still need a shower, by the
I
way.
recognize the first two texts, and I believe that I recognize all these texts correctly.
I wasn't able to get one last night because I was so tired and I feel dirty and gritty.
are you saying something's missing?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to now show you screenshots that we received from your phone and your text messages between Jennifer Crumbley that same day.
Use the ones I gave you, yes.
Okay.
Come on, chat.
Is your testimony that these accurately depict the entire text conversation of that day?
Could you scroll down?
Sure.
Okay. This looks accurate, yes.
Okay, so the message, the exhibit I just showed you had 4 messages, around 4 or 5. This is actually several messages. Is this your full conversation?
This would be the full conversation, yes, I texted that day.
Okay. And when did you never deleted any text messages that, okay. So this is exactly what it was that you turned over to law enforcement?
Yes.
All right, thank you. The first text, if you can see this exhibit, if you go to the top, Mr. Smith, what's the time on the first text you received from Jennifer Crumbley?
This is Tuesday at 10:05 a.m.
And you said earlier, did you say you were driving to work or you were at work?
I forget, I was driving. Where I was going, I don't recall. Probably
Okay.
to work or coming from property, but I was
All right.
driving, yes.
Assuming you weren't reading your text messages while driving, this is when you received the text. Can you read her text to you?
I have to go to my kid's school. Counselor just called, and this is what I'm dealing with. I'll be back by 11:30, 12 at the latest.
Okay, so that text came in at 10:05, and she is telling you exactly when she'll be back.
That's what it says, yeah.
Okay, so then she attaches this, a picture. Do you know what that is?
I know now what it is.
Did you look at it at the time you received it?
No, I did look at it. It was later that day I looked at it, but not at the time. I was driving at the time. I just saw the text on my phone pop up, and I
Okay.
just saw him.
Was it required that Jennifer let you know if she was leaving and where she was going, or was this unusual?
No, I mean, we want people to let us know if they're leaving, coming, going. She was good about that. She let me know if she was coming and going.
Sorry, is there something going on?
No,
What do you mean?
it's just, okay, thank you. Can you, the next, I believe there's some issue with a camera in the back, but I don't know. Can I proceed, Your Honor?
Your Honor, I'm sorry. It's very distracting, so I'm just asking if
Wait, what
there's
do you mean?
something happening.
Yeah,
Can we-
I'm sorry, what did you say?
it's hard to hear the witness.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's
Your
hard.
your work is not your family. If for no other reason, then they will fire you at their convenience. I mean, they're not your family. It's some bullshit. It's just one of these things that they tell you. No company treats their employees like their family, because they will hire and fire to satisfy their own business decisions. You wouldn't do that with family, right? You wouldn't just fire somebody. You're probably going to bend over backwards before you're like, I can't keep employing you because you're my father, brother, cousin, son, whatever, right? It's a lie. It's a lie. And the employer wants more loyalty from you than you're willing to give them. The thing that I always sort of note that sort of always got me was with the whole 2 weeks notice thing, because your employer won't give you 2 weeks notice. They're going to just be like, yeah, we're going to fire you. We're letting you go, or whatever euphemism they're going to use that day. All right. And that sometimes they'll do it without any notice. I seem to remember, wasn't it Facebook or something like that, where they fired a couple thousand people and no one knew about it until they tried to log into their computers and they couldn't. Like, they got no email, no notice. They just couldn't log into their computers. And that apparently was all the notice that they were given. So your employer has no loyalty to you. The whole we're family thing is absolute bullshit. It's just a way to try to get you to do more things for them, because you do more things for your family. But they will not treat you like family. There's no way they treat you like family. It's a lie. And although I've not had the pleasure, personally, it's like 2 weeks notice. How about I won't give you any notice? How about just like I won't be here tomorrow? My employer's like, yeah, this is another thing I like, where their employers are like, well, you have to give us notice to quit. No, you don't. Right? It's in our policies. You have to give us notice. Well, I don't really, because it's a right to work state. Or apologize, I'm an at-will employee. I'm an at-will employee, so I don't have to give you notice. Our policies say so. Well, that's unfortunate because I'm not showing up tomorrow. You know? Yeah. So yeah, if I were ever down to it, I'd be like, I'm just not, I quit. And they're like, you can't quit. You have to give us notice. I'm like, well, I won't be here tomorrow, so, you know. Yeah. Good luck's getting a good reference from them. They won't give you, yeah, most companies won't give you, well, they won't give you a good reference, but they won't give you a bad reference either. Most companies won't give you a bad reference. All they'll do is validate employment. Yeah, most HR at most companies, all they'll do is validate employment. Like, yes, this person worked between these dates and this date. They typically will not do anything more than that. They don't want the liability. So, yeah, you know, you may not get your boss to give you a good reference, but you won't get a bad reference and be like, yeah, they worked here. That's all we can validate. Yeah, you can't give a bad reference anymore. There's too much liability for it. There's too much liability. So, yeah, most people will not give a bad reference. There's just too much liability. So all they'll simply say is, yes, this person worked for us. Yeah.
It has to be quiet.
All we're allowed to do is validate employment. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, thank you.
Exactly. Too much liability.
Yes.
The next message, well, before we get to the next message, tell me when was the first time you actually saw Jennifer Crumbley that day?
I recall, I don't remember the exact timeline, it's been 2 years, but I recall.
Especially when you're doing something within your rights, like I quit. It's like, yeah, he didn't give us enough. He didn't give us enough notice. But that's legal for me to do. You can't complain about the fact that I did something legal.
And did she say anything to you?
I recall walking up to her asking how was she doing? Was she doing okay?
Bad reference might call defamation. Yeah, exactly so.
She had to get her
exactly so.
She seemed down. I think she had mentioned a few things. I recall her mentioning that.
Yeah, use the work number service to validate. Exactly. HR. Yeah, all HR will be like, yes, they work this date to this date.
She may have said more. I remember she seemed down. I think she said she felt like she was a failure or failing him, and she had to get him counseling.
Maybe validate your title.
And she said,
that's about it, right?
I'm failing him. Who was she talking about?
I believe her son.
Okay. And what was your response?
I remember saying, if he needs counseling, I'm glad you're getting him counseling. Get him the help he needs. We're glad to hear you're getting him that help.
Okay.
So don't worry about a bad reference. Don't worry about it. Especially don't worry about it if the job is making you miserable. No. They won't give you notice. Why should you give them notice?
Together outside of any work center.
You know?
No.
Did you said you didn't Facebook message her. Your conversations were just text or calling or email?
There may have been a Facebook message where she would send me photos.
Yeah, in IT, they never give you notice. The damage that can cause is irreparable. Yeah, exactly so. They won't give notice. They won't give notice, generally speaking, to anybody.
Phone or text.
And before this occurred, what, if anything, did you know about her son?
Since I was gone, who is this? Look at the screen harder.
She had a son in school.
Look at the screen harder. It will give you your answer.
She mentioned small talk.
The banner has failed. The banner has failed us all.
Was in school. I recall something about him being in a bowling, an avid bowler, I recall correctly. And I remember that she mentioned some vacations they went on, some camping, some family trips. I recalled her discussing, he had a part-time job, I remember mentioning it sometime in the past.
Good morning, Serena.
Small stuff.
Good morning to Hawaii. Hope you're having a great day over there in Hawaii.
Taking him skiing.
I know she was big into skiing. I don't recall her mentioning her son skiing, I don't know.
How do you know she was big into skiing?
She talked about it quite a bit. I think she
I need a beer.
Or she was like a volunteer ski instructor or ski school type thing.
I need a beer and a shower is what I need. It may be 11 a.m., but I've earned it. I'm tired.
Okay. Was her son with her that day?
At the office?
Lunch beer.
Yes.
No.
Would that have been allowed?
Sure.
What was her schedule that day?
Melakaliki Maka is the way to say Christmas, a beautiful Christmas day.
I do know that we had a property visit scheduled that afternoon that she was invited to.
Was that a required meeting?
No, not at all.
Did you know at that time the school asked?
A tall boy sounds really good right about now.
Him counseling that day. Did she ever tell you that?
No.
I do like when I go to bars and they have like Lone Star on happy hour and it's not too expensive. It's not a bad beer. You get a tall boy for like $4. Not bad.
Was there any big project or assignment that Jennifer Crumbley was expected to do that day, an upcoming deadline that needed to be met that day?
I can't think of any deadline or anything.
Happy birthday, Buttercup.
But I'm sure she had a busy schedule.
Happy birthday.
Specific, no.
Okay.
To
I
you.
guess what I'm asking is, had she asked to
And many
do that day,
more.
would that have been a problem for the company? Or you were her
It
supervisor?
would have been no problem at all.
Did she have
Yeah,
any
beer and
paid
shower.
time
That's what I'm going
off?
to do. I'm going to go. Maybe I'll drink the beer
I don't
in the
know
shower.
what bank she had for PTO, but it wouldn't have mattered to me.
Guinness in the shower. That could be fun.
When was the next time you had any contact with Jennifer Crumbley? After you saw her in the copy room?
We had a quick meeting with another colleague shortly thereafter, 20 minutes, 30 minutes thereafter.
Can you give me a time frame about?
I think I saw her in the copy room about noon, and so 20, 30 minutes thereafter, around 12:20, 12:30 that afternoon.
Shower beer is best
talked
beer?
about
Could be.
the property we were going to visit, kind of what our goals, why we were going there. And we had talked, I think, about some calls and things we had down the road a couple days later.
Okay, and when after that was your next contact with her?
I recall, because I was in a Zoom hearing at the time, about 1 o'clock, I think it was.
Okay.
I heard some loud commotion outside my office.
Try telling your. I saw this in chat in my chat. Try telling your employer you're pregnant and need maternity leave.
Was it to yours?
They become a-holes.
10,
Well, just a
12,
friendly reminder, of course, if you've been employed for at least a year, you're entitled to leave under the Family Medical Leave Act, and they can't say no. Now, they don't have to pay you, and they might make you take whatever vacation time you have left. So they can make you burn vacation time, and I think they can make you burn sick leave if you have any. Although, of course, you'll get paid because that's paid time, so that's not too bad. But you're entitled to, I think it's 12 weeks of leave, and they have to hold your job. It's the law. So you can be like, yeah, I'm taking pregnancy leave. No, you're not. I'm like, yes, I am. It's the law. Screw you. Yeah, if you have 50 employees, that's true. Yeah, if you have 50 employees, correct. If you have 50 employees and you've been there a year, you're right. You're correct. It's nice to know your rights. Yeah, it's not for small employers. That's right. You have to have 50 employees. That's right. But I believe that's as it applies to the entire business. So if you work at like a local Burger King, I think it still applies because it's for all Burger Kings everywhere. But you know, you can double check on that. So I don't think it's if your store has 50 people. I think it's like if the company as a whole has 50 employees. So yeah. And there can be protections under the ADA. That's also possible too. Yeah.
You said you heard. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Let them fire you because you're pregnant. That'll go over super well.
Loud noise, like yelling, screaming type.
Yeah, maternity leave was what we were just talking about, the Family Medical Leave Act. That's what I just was talking about.
I looked outside to see what the noise was, and I saw her like racing out of.
If you've been employed at least a year, and if your company has at least 50 employees, then yes, you're entitled to 12 weeks off. It's unpaid,
What she was upset about.
but you're entitled to the time, and they have to hold your job.
Active shooter at her child's school. And I remember saying to her, go.
And if they're like, we're not going to hold your job, or you try to come back and your job isn't there, you can sue them and win lots and lots of money.
When was the next time that you had any
Super
contact
duper
with
money.
her after she left around 1 o'clock?
Yeah, they may not hold your job. They have to. Yeah, they have to hold your job. So if it's like, yeah, we're not going to hold your job, I'd be like, okay. You know, I'm taking a little time. And I come back, I'm ready to come. Yeah, your job is no longer available. I'm like, okay, can I get that in writing? And then I'm going to sue the ever-living shit out of them. So don't worry about it because you're going to have all the money you need for you and your baby forever. Don't worry about it. Yeah, if they say we're not going to hold your job, be like, okay, I'm taking the leave. And 12 weeks later, like, I'm back. Okay, we don't have your job. Okay. Can I get that in writing, please? Then you sue them. You sue them to death. Yeah.
I got the text on this thread, the one on that says 123. The gun is gone. So are the bullets. Was the next time I received any communication from her.
Okay, so she leaves around 1. The text comes in at 1:23.
Yeah, don't do that, Larry Bud. Your sister used to do hiring. Girl comes in and says she wants the job so she can go on maternity leave. Yeah, don't volunteer that information to your employer. or potential employer, because that's not great. Don't tell them that. They can't ask you, but if you volunteer that information, and it's like, well, why didn't you hire them? Well, we didn't hire them because, we just had a bad feeling about them. Like, literally any reason other than that. But if you say to your employer, like, I'm taking medical leave, especially if you do it in writing, email is always your friend. So if you can put it in writing, email is your friend. So if possible, I'd email the employer and be like, hey, boss, just want to let you know, I'm telling you, by the way, I'm not asking. I'm telling you, under the Family Medical Leave Act, I hereby give notice that I will be taking leave starting this date due to insert qualifying event here, which can be pregnancy, but doesn't need to be pregnancy. The Family Medical Leave Act also applies to yourself. Incidentally, I've used the Family Medical Leave Act for myself for depression. As like, because I did it twice, actually, while I was at my employer. And I was like, yes, I need to invoke this because I'm so burned out that I need to take time off for myself. I need an extended leave for myself. So twice while I was employed, I invoked the Family Medical Leave Act so I could take extended time off on the hopes that somehow taking the extended time off would make me able to do my job again. And the first time it kind of worked. And the second time it kind of didn't. I took 6 weeks and I got back and I'm like, no, I'm still burned out. And I could have taken 6 more weeks, obviously, but I was like, you know what? It's just time to go. So the Family Medical Leave Act is your friend. Big brain, big brain. It can also apply if you're taking care of somebody in your immediate family. Take a look. It's your friend.
Let's talk about this for a second. Did you know something about
surgical, mental health, bereavement? Yep.
Did you know that she had purchased a gun for her son?
No.
Okay. So when you got this text, what were you thinking?
I didn't know what to think. It alarmed me.
Okay.
She just run out and I got...
Would you hire someone who's taking family leave? You wouldn't know. There's no way for them to know when they hire you that you've taken it in the past. How would they know?
Everything is okay.
They can't ask you.
And
it would be illegal to ask.
The next text was from her.
And it would be illegal for your employer to tell them.
Texted you.
Yeah.
There was a phone call that came in before that next text. It was just for timeline. If you remember that, but
Yes,
so would I hire someone? There's no way for me to know. Yeah, there's no way for me to know they've taken family leave in the past. Would I hire someone who's taken it twice? There's no way for me to know that. I can't ask. If the potential employee has any brains whatsoever, they're not going to tell me. Their prior employer is not going to tell me. So there's no way for me to know that. It's protected. It's protected by law. So, yeah, there's no way for you to know that.
She made a phone call that came in at what time? 1:25.
What if you knew, like they said it on
I
YouTube?
don't remember the exact times. I can remember what happened.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Well, then that's my problem, I guess.
You're saying the call came after I'm praying everything is okay?
I remember this because I was in a hearing. I was in a court hearing, covering hearing, and I stepped away and I got that because I was so alarmed by it that I walked down to my human resource director's office to let them know what had just transpired, to show her this text. And when I was in
And when you say this text, you mean just the one, the gun's gone and so are the bullets?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Correct. Then I recalled receiving a phone call from her. I was in my HR director's office at the time, and I put it on speaker, and I remember there was a conversation.
And can you tell me what the conversation was about? What did Jennifer say?
I can't remember everything, but I remember vividly the sound of sirens in the background.
Was she in her car driving? Was she at home?
I believe she was in a car. She's in a car, I believe, driving. I remember her saying she was trying to get to her child's school.
Okay. So what did she say?
I remember her telling us she was trying to get to her child's school.
I mean, my bigger problem, to be quite honest, is just finding an employer who would hire me because I have a YouTube channel. That might be a negative to some employers, just generally speaking. Although it might be a positive to some employers too. So I'm not sure how that would break, incidentally. But I could imagine just some employers being cautious of hiring me just because I have a YouTube channel. Now, of course, I'm an attorney. I know how to shout my mouth. And I never talk about specifically who my employer was for exactly this reason, right? I never mention my employer by name. I've never on the history of my channel ever mentioned who I was employed by because for exactly this reason. Right, I keep my work life and my personal life separate. So I talk a little bit about my work and what I do, but I've never once mentioned my employer because I have better discretion than that. and I'm an attorney. So I know how to keep my mouth shut about things that happen at work. So I'm not sure how it would play to a company, but I could see them being cautious at hiring an attorney who has a YouTube channel, although I can see some being excited about it. So, you know, it could split both ways, you know, yeah. I am doing YouTube full-time now. Yes, I've been doing YouTube full-time for about 1.5 years. So I've been on an extended sabbatical, and it's been wonderful for my mental health. I probably will get back into law sometime after I move to Houston, try to get my feet back into law. But I've definitely enjoyed the sabbatical. I've enjoyed the time away. It's been nice and refreshing. And I'm definitely doing some new field of law. I don't want to go back to what I was doing before if I can avoid it.
I believe she said something about the gun was missing, or family gun was missing. It was me and our HR director were both.
I will start at like baseline pay for a salary.
Her husband had already called.
So I'm willing to start for, you know, I'm willing to start over because I just want to do something different.
Had you ever met James Crumbley?
I never cursed him, no.
Okay.
I'm moving about a month from now.
In fact, did call 911?
No, I mean, just what you told us.
End of February.
Did she say he had already called, or he was going to call?
I believe she said he had already called the police.
All right. What happened after that? Did you end the conversation? Did she end the conversation?
I don't remember much more. It was short, and they said, let us know something we can do to help, or let us know what we can do. Then I stayed with my HR director because we were trying to find out what was actually going on, and I got these next texts.
So you ended the call?
Yes.
You're still in the HR director's office?
What area of law would I like to do? Preferably civil appeal, I think.
My office, which is about a minute away to
Civil appeals.
log off of Zoom.
Okay.
Or I can't remember exactly, but it would have been there.
Supreme Court appeals would be great if I could if I could find a case that would go there. That'd be cool.
Text was
I'd probably try to find cases that I thought might be Supreme Court viable.
From Jennifer to me.
Okay, can you read that?
If I could be selective.
OMG, Andy, he's going to kill himself. He must be the shooter.
All right, now there's no timestamp on those specific messages, which normally would indicate they're coming in along the same string. Is that correct, or do you remember there was a significant period of time that lapsed?
I don't remember the exact times, but I want to recall us being somewhat close in proximity within the same hour time.
I'm living on the outskirts of Houston, so I'm not so worried about problems in Houston.
With police.
And then the next text.
Ethan did it.
Okay. What's going through your mind at this point?
Shock, fear, sadness, a lot of emotions. We didn't really know what to think.
Okay. And you testified earlier, after I asked a few questions, that you're actually a lawyer.
Yes.
Okay. Do you practice any kind of criminal law?
Never, no.
Okay. Had she ever asked you for a lawyer before?
I get asked that question a lot by people. She may have. I don't recall.
Okay. So it appears from this text string that you didn't respond via text right away.
No.
I'm going to be on the western side of Houston.
Okay.
That's as specific as I want to be for my own safety.
Shortly after that last text, Ethan did it. There was no phone call.
The western side of Houston still covers a lot of territory.
Was still in my HR director's office.
So, you know, it's as specific as I want to be.
Was it on speaker or?
Yeah, I'm not going to dox myself. Like now I'll tell people like, I'm on the northern side of Austin because that covers a lot of territory, you know?
Or had been at the police station and that she needed a lawyer. Could I recommend a lawyer?
And what did you say?
I couldn't think of one at the time. It's not my area. And I just couldn't think of one. And I think I told her I'd ask our corporate counsel if she could think of someone to recommend.
Okay. What was going on at the office at this point? Were there people around? Did the people in the office, did anyone have any outside knowledge of the shooting?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't like Whataburger. I don't like Whataburger. I don't think they make good food. I find Whataburger to be kind of trash, to be honest.
What eventually did you decide? Did you guys go back to work? Did you just wait for another communication? Did you start looking for a lawyer?
I did not look for a lawyer. As I told her, I mentioned to corporate counsel that this is what we just learned and she's reaching out. If you could reach out back to her, let her know. I know we were closely watching the news, trying to figure out.
There's a Pete Terry's near my place that serves a really good burger, though.
I left a little bit early that day.
Raising Cane's is pretty decent, yeah.
Why'd you do that?
There are a lot of emotions going on. I just want to get home and see my family.
In-N-Out serves a good deal. Yeah.
At some point, did you receive another
Is it
text from
feasible for me to open my own practice?
Yes. At
Yeah.
3:39
On appellate law, sure.
I got a text that
So that's about 2.5 hours after she left the office when the shooting occurred?
I mean, not my ideal, but it's possible.
What does the text say?
I need my job. Please don't judge me for what my son did.
What did you think when you received that text?
I was a little taken back. I was surprised that she was worried about work right then.
Did you respond?
I did. At 5,
Yeah, Canes does chicken. Yeah, Canes does chicken.
So
That's
at this
basically
point,
all they
were you
do.
at work
And they
or
do a
were you
pretty
home?
good job.
I think I was home at that point.
Okay, and your response was what?
I can't even begin to understand what you're going through. I'm praying for you. I asked Carolyn to text you some attorney recommendations, and Carolyn's our corporate counsel.
All right, and did she respond?
She did. I don't know what time, but it was later after that text. They were taking my cell phone.
Was that the last communication you had with Jennifer Crumbley?
That's the last time I can recall communicating with her, yes.
Okay, at some point did the company terminate her employment?
Yes, she was terminated.
Okay, do you remember about when that was?
I want to say it was a couple days. I don't remember the exact date. It was some days after this incident, November 30th. Whether it was 2 or 3 days, I don't remember exactly.
Okay. At the beginning of this, I showed you the text string from Jennifer's phone versus your phone. Was there any ever discussion or comments from Jennifer about?
I'm sure the lawyer's going to ask, why did you terminate her?
Text messages to you.
Did she ever talk to me about the? No, I never read that.
I would.
Do you know why?
I move in about a
All
month.
right, nothing further.
I move at the end of February.
Your Honor, I have quite a bit of cross because there's previous testimony. Is it a good time to break?
No.
Okay.
I don't know. If you
Your
guys
Honor,
can break-
if we could just finish with the cross so we can excuse this witness.
Yeah, we were 2 hours late
Okay.
today.
I have
I'd
no-
like to know. You guys aren't starving to death over there, are you?
I have
Okay.
no problem. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Smith, I just want to go back to a couple of things you said.
Nice to see you from Twitch. Glad
you and
you're
Jennifer
joining
did
us.
not say you guys were friends outside of work, correct?
We were coworkers and friendly at work.
Okay, friendly at work, you guys would make small talk.
Sure, yes.
And you, when you heard that something was going on at the high school, you would agree with me that Mrs. Crumbley sounded very frantic.
When she called us the first time I heard the sirens, she definitely sounded panicked, frantic, yes.
You would agree she sounded shocked and concerned?
Yes.
And you testified that when you saw her at the office earlier, coming back from the school, she had appeared sad.
Yes.
It was during that time when Mrs. Crumbley was at your office that you guys discussed the meeting she had had at the school earlier that day.
Yes.
And during that meeting, she told you that the school wanted her to get her son in some counseling, correct?
I don't know if she said this. I think so. I know she said she had to get her son counseling.
She was planning to get her son
Yes,
counseling.
yes.
And it's appeared you were aware she was worried about her son at that time.
Yes.
Mrs. Crumbley is not someone who had a history of constantly disrupting her day at work. Is that fair to say?
It's a tough question to answer, but yeah, it's fair. I don't remember disruptions. No.
I suppose a better question would be, she was not a parent who was constantly having to leave work to go to her child's school for different reasons.
That I don't recall any other examples of that.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try to stick to YouTube. I mean, I did my YouTube when I still had a full-time job, so I was kind of doing both.
You never had any concerns.
So it may change the channel in a lot of ways. We may not do live streams as much because I'll be busy during the day, but
No.
And
you know,
if anything,
we'll try
you
to
would
keep the
just
channel
hear
active,
about
even if it's
little
just,
bits
you
and
know,
details
doing
about
stuff on the
him.
weekend
You
and
testified about
releasing it edited format or whatever. We'll try to keep it active.
camping.
I recall her mentioning them, yes.
You recalled the part-time job, skiing.
I don't know. I know she skied. I don't know if he did. I don't remember that.
Okay. And in terms of Jennifer working at the company prior to her being terminated, you would agree with me that she was
We fixed the audio issues,
a pretty consistent hard worker.
but thank you.
Yes,
And Jennifer appeared to take her career very seriously.
I agree, yes.
She was diligent about attending meetings she was invited to or supposed to attend.
Yes.
She was somebody the company could count on.
No, I
to
might
do
get
her
back into
job.
law. I might just try to get back into law a little bit more when I move.
She took advantage
I've been
of
out for a year and a half.
that your company
It's a good time to
offered
try to
allow her
think
to
about
go
dipping my toes back
to
into the
handle
legal
different matters
waters.
she may have needed to handle.
Might try to
I
do
know She
something.
would have taken advantage of the flexibility to do what I don't know, but sure.
Okay. And I'm correct when I say that Kathy Poliquin, she's the manager of HR, correct?
She's was what at the time was the director of human resources.
I'm sorry, director of human resources.
Maybe Attorney Tom can give me some piecework,
I have her
for example.
listed as a witness, but I may, based on the prosecution's questions, I may be able to just ask you. But if you're not the right person, can you just let me know?
Yes.
Okay, so you testified that to have a single person on the company's insurance was approximately $200 per month.
That's what I read.
I don't know if he's interested in that, but just an idea.
And you would agree, well, and I'm sorry, when you say $200...
It was bi-weekly, so I don't know.
It's not that we've discussed anything, just an idea, you know.
$200 twice a month.
My understanding is yes.
And if she had had another person added to the insurance,
Do they have lesser included?
it would have been approximately
I'm not sure there are any
$500
hypothetical lesser included, so I don't
twice a
think so.
month.
I don't have the document in front of me, but I know it went up from +1 and then went up again for family.
Okay, and when it goes up for family, are you aware of what it would have been for there to be 3 people on the insurance?
I'd be guessing. My understanding is family covers as many families you may have, immediate family. I don't know if it's 3 to 10. It covers your entire family, my understanding.
It's fair to say that in the past you have complained that the health care costs taken from your paychecks is significant.
Have I complained? No, because I'm not on the health plan now.
So you're not on the health plan at Princeton, correct?
I'm not on my company's plan, correct?
But I assume you have health care through somewhere else.
Correct.
And in this case, with the Crumbleys, you're not aware if they had health care through another source, correct?
Correct.
And as far as you know,
Yeah, family health plan for $1,000 a month, that is
Mr.
outrageous.
Crumbly had a job.
That is outrageous. $1,000 a month, that's outrageous.
Yeah, I remember he had a job, a career, and I think he was laid off or in between jobs at the time.
And you're not aware if Mrs. Crumbley, Mr. Crumbley, or their son was covered on Mr. Crumbley's insurance.
I'm not aware.
In addition to the insurance offered at Princeton, there's also a plan through Allied that you guys can take advantage of.
I'd want
where
to
you
ask
get
why the CEO
virtual
isn't on his own
doctor
insurance,
visits.
actually.
Are you aware of that?
I wonder that.
Yes.
And those
I mean, I don't know what the answer is,
virtual
but
doctor
what's the worst that can
visits
happen, right?
are free as part of the Allied benefit.
Why not ask the question? Why aren't you on your own insurance?
So yes.
I mean, I don't know the
And
answer,
you
but what can the answer
also get
possibly be that would hurt me,
Aflac
right?
Supplemental insurance for yourself and your family members.
And you're getting in the HR world, but my understanding is yes, you can elect those benefits.
Now, the open enrollment period is right in approximately November every year. Is that right?
I honestly don't recall when, but I know it's every year at the same time, and it's open for approximately 30 days, I believe.
And you may not be the right witness, and if you're not, just let me know.
Okay.
Are you aware that in November of 2021, Mrs. Crumbley was doing anything with her insurance?
I'm not aware now.
Now, when you were texting or exchanging messages with Mrs. Crumbley, there was not any point in time where she said to you, "Hey Andy, delete these texts," correct?
That's correct.
So she texted you over a photograph of that math paper.
She sent that to me, yes.
Obviously, when you look at that math paper, especially knowing what we know today, it's very alarming.
Yes.
And she texted you openly that the gun was gone and so are the bullets.
That's what you texted me, yes.
And when you were texting with her, you were exchanging back kind words to her, supporting her, and saying things along the lines of, I'm praying for you, I hope everything's okay, things like that, correct?
Well, not things, that exactly.
Why no gun charges? I'm not sure there's any
You knew
applicable.
At the time that you were communicating those things to Mrs. Crumbley, she was in a
I'm not sure
high
any of
state
this is
stress.
applicable, to be honest.
Saw
But,
her
so
run out of the office and panic.
Not only did you see her run out of the office in panic, you heard her screaming when she heard about the open shooter.
I heard her like yelling, screaming that she had to leave. There was an open.
it could also be because the prosecutor doesn't want to give anything lesser
But there was a shooting event.
because they really want the top count and they're
Definitely
afraid of
strong
compromise in the
reaction from
jury
Mrs.
room.
Crumbley
So
about
there's
what
like
was
it's an all or nothing prosecution.
Now,
They don't want to give the
after
jury anything to settle on.
Mrs. Crumbley found out more information. We saw the text
So that could be
where
why.
Mrs. Crumbley is saying, I need my job.
It wouldn't be
Please don't
unheard of
judge
for a
me
prosecutor
what
to
my
do. It's like
son
we're only
did,
going to give
correct?
one charge, all or nothing.
Now, at that time, you're aware that James Crumbley was laid off.
I knew he was in between jobs. I don't know what he was doing at that point.
And so Mrs. Crumbley is certainly voicing the concern to you, I don't want to lose my job, correct?
She sent the text, I need my job.
As far as you knew from working with Mrs. Crumbley over time, she liked her job, was good at it, and valued that job.
I thought she was good at her job, yes.
And her text indicating she wanted to keep her job, you have no reason to believe she didn't want to keep her job.
No, none.
I have nothing further.
Redirect?
Nothing, Your Honor. May he be excused?
Yeah, you may step down and you're excused.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't think they did anything illegal with respect to the gun either. That was hypothesis number one. Hypothesis number two, because they wanted all or nothing. So I gave both possibilities.
About 4:31. We lost some time today. I think one of the jurors was making a snowman, another one was... All right,
I need to schedule a stream for this afternoon.
do that, okay?
All right, jury.
You may be seated. You know, could I have the prosecutor approach on an unrelated matter, actually a sort of related matter, which is the other, are you off?
You want me to be?
Yes.
That's good.
I just want to ask you a few questions.
How y'all doing? I need a shower so bad. I'm gonna take a shower during the lunch break. I need a shower so bad. All right. Okay, great. All right. And I think I set up everything for the stream this afternoon. All right, that's cool. All right, so that's where we're sitting right now. Thank you for the 542 of you currently watching. We do appreciate all of you who are here. Just a friendly reminder, of course, it only costs 99 cents to hit that beautiful, beautiful join button. For 99 cents a month, you too can become a supporter of the channel. It's true. Literally the cheapest, they'll let me charge you. I literally can't charge you any less. What do you get for your 99 cents? Well, you get a cool little icon by your name. You get to bypass time limitations in chat. You get access to member-only content, such as gaming streams. You get cool emojis. That's nice. And you get the knowledge that you're helping an uncivil, live. So that's plus. Did anyone happen to notice when they said that the court was coming back? Because I didn't hear it. Anyone happen to hear it? I could look it up. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. 12:45. So it's 11:45. No, that can't be. 12:45. That doesn't make sense. Oh, they mean that local. They mean that in their time. An hour? Great. All right, so they do mean 12:45. Okay, this channel is just being confusing to me. All right. So yeah, we get an hour. Okay, cool. That's plenty of time. It's plenty of time for me to get a break and get a shower. Yeah. All right, I'm going to sign off because I need a break and stretch and possibly some sort of food product. Any questions before I sign this off? Comments, concerns, thoughts, ideas? No? Okay. All right, I'm going to sign off for now. I hope you all have a great one. Till later, my friends. I hope all's well. Cheers, my friends, and for now, goodbye.